This happened almost a month ago, but it's only as of today that I had the wherewithal to start writing it all down. I want to share what happened to me as part vent and part precautionary tale, and so I hope you understand why I'm keeping the details vague. I'm a 21-year-old female and I'm about to graduate college. Since sophomore year, I've worked part-time as a barista at a coffee shop. Up until a few weeks ago, it was a great gig. I was well paid, I got free pastries, and many of my coworkers became close friends of mine. One of said coworkers is relevant to this story, and to protect her privacy, I'll refer to her as Lydia henceforth. Every once in a while, I would get hit on by a patron, but it never escalated beyond a few sometimes creepy comments. I had previously never felt unsafe at my workplace, especially with all my coworkers and regulars around. That changed about a month ago when this whole ordeal began. It was around 4 in the afternoon, a pretty quiet time for the cafe, and I was refilling the pastry display. All of a sudden, Lydia comes up to me and says, "Hey, that guy at table 10 has been staring at you for a really long time. Do you two know each other?" I looked at the corner table and instantly saw the patron in question. He wasn't a regular and he was a lot older than our usual clientele, probably in his late 50s. He had large, light blue eyes and thick worm-like lips. I expected him to look away after I had spotted him, or maybe to give me a suggestive wink and smile. The patron didn't either. Not only did he continue staring at me, but he did so with an expression of pure shock on his face. He looked as though he had seen a ghost. After an awkward staring contest, he rose from his seat and approached the counter. Before I could do my usual spiel, "How was the drink, sir? Can I help you out with anything else today?" the man said. "Angelica. That's not my name, sorry." "Oh, right. It's only a stage name then." His voice was soft and high-pitched, as if atrophied. I had no clue what he was talking about and told him as much, albeit in more polite terms. What followed was a brief but frustrating conversation. The man, seemingly convinced that I was someone else, kept asking me about a video series that he had seen me in. Specifically, he was interested in commissioning me for a video. By the way he danced around the exact content of said videos, I had a feeling that he was alluding to something inappropriate. At one point, he mentioned that name of what I presumed to be the platform he was watching these videos on. I obviously won't give the exact name here, but for the purposes of this account, I'll call it Doves. After some more back and forth, I was starting to think that the guy wasn't completely alright in the head. It would explain his insistence and his generally strange demeanor. However, just as I was about to ask him to leave, the man suddenly went quiet, sighing as though collecting himself. After a moment, he gave me a wink. I remember his eyelids audibly clicking as they opened and shut. "You don't have to be nervous," he told me. "I'm a fan of yours. Look." He then took his phone out of his pocket, spent a minute searching for something, and then held the phone out to me. I don't know what got into me exactly, sheer curiosity I guess, but I took the phone from his hands to look at the image that he had pulled up. On the greasy screen was a photo of a young woman in an empty white room. The lighting was harsh and flat, lending an uncanny effect to an already bizarre composition. The woman stood close enough to the camera that you could only see her body from the waist up. She held her arm out towards the camera, showing off what seemed to be a puncture wound on her forearm. There was a large bruise encircling the area, and the wound itself was clearly infected, caked with old blood and pus. I looked up from the arm to her face, and despite the strange lighting, I was shocked by how much it looked like my own. She had my eye color and shape, My nose, my jaw, even my freckles. I dropped the phone onto the counter with a gasp, and the man scrambled to pick it up. "What the heck is that? Where did you get this photo?" I shouted, losing all pretense of nonchalance. The cafe went quiet, customers looking over at us and a few of my coworkers stepping closer to me. Seeing this, the man scowled and began muttering under his breath. I only caught a few words, uppity and good money among them. He exited the shop in a huff, leaving an untouched cup of coffee on the corner table. After he left, I took 15 in the break room to compose myself. The photograph of the woman burned in my mind's eye. This Angelica seriously could have been my long-lost identical twin. I pulled up my phone and did a preliminary search for Doves, the website. At least I assumed it was a website that the man had mentioned, but I saw nothing that looked like a content-sharing platform. I resolved to do a more thorough investigation once I had returned home and had access to a computer. I made it through the rest of my evening without further incident. I worked the closing shift that day, 2 to 10 at night. When at last my coworkers and I finished all of our closing tasks, I put on my coat and stepped out of the building. The moment I felt the cold air on my face, the thought of walking 2 blocks to my car made me sick with fear. Lydia walked me to my car, which I greatly appreciated. She's a good head shorter than me, but she carries, so I felt a heck of a lot safer braving the dark beside her. When I reached my car, I checked the trunk and back seat. After assuring myself that there was no one waiting for me inside, I bid my friend good night and we parted ways. I had plenty of time to reflect during my 30-minute drive home. Embarrassing as it is to admit, I was a former pageant kid. I competed for most of my childhood, at the behest of my former beauty queen mother. As a teenager, my mom tried to get me into modeling. It never went anywhere, but the amount of times my parents made me sit for digitals gave me some long-term scopophobia. To this day, I don't have any public social media as a result. I think anyone would be disturbed if a stranger confronted them in the way that my customer did to me, but my background made the experience impossible to shrug off. I needed to figure out who the heck this Angela woman was, even if I knew I might not like what I discovered. I got back to my apartment at around 10:30 at night, and the first thing that I did was grab a drink, hoping it would soothe my anxiety. Unfortunately, the alcohol seemed to have the complete opposite effect. Never before had I regretted living alone so much. The fact that I lived on the first floor of the apartment building, usually a great convenience, also seemed at that moment to be a point of vulnerability. I checked that all my doors and windows were locked before settling into my desk to begin my research. When checking the lock on my bedroom window, I stole a glance outside at the street. My apartment building has no attached parking garage, so the streets outside are lined with cars at all hours of the day and night. I become familiar with my neighbors' cars to the point where I can recognize when one of them is missing. It's for this reason that I picked up on the unfamiliar Cherokee XJ across the street, the dark blue car which I initially mistook for my neighbor's Isuzu Trooper, blended in well with its surroundings despite being an unusual model. I don't think I would have noticed it at all had the events of the day not left me so paranoid. I didn't see anyone inside, and it wasn't as though there was anything I could do about it, so I just closed my shutters and focused on the task at hand. At 10:45, I sat down at my desk with nothing but a woman's name and what I believed to be the name of a website. For a full hour, I poked around on the web to no avail. I started off with searches like Angelica arm puncture wound video and Angelica arm white room doves. And then I tried more detailed queries. I searched around increasingly obscure forums dedicated to all manner of topics, from body horror art to grotesque auto-portraiture photography. Several drinks later, it occurred to me that I might be conducting my investigation in the wrong place, more specifically, on the wrong layer of the web. I hadn't wanted to confront the notion previously, but there was a chance that Angelica was producing some kind of unsavory content, and if that were the case, I wasn't sure how much I'd find about her content on the surface web. Since I don't want anybody reading this to go on to search for the website, I'm not going to get into the details of my search. I will say though that once I got on to Dread, it wasn't nearly as hard to find as I thought. By midnight, I had found what I was looking for. The website's homepage was minimalistic, white text on a pure black background. It had a heading, Doves, and a subheading, 3 friends creating exclusive content with love. Beneath were 3 names that let me know I was in the right place: Angelica, Mary, Adam. I steeled myself and clicked on Angelica. This portion of the site was a single sprawling page that seemed to scroll for miles. Up at the top was a message supposedly written by the woman herself. Angelica, 18, durable. I heart my fans. No longer accepting commissions. Price varies on a per video per photo set basis. Click title for duration, thumbnail, and price info. Videos before 1:14:23 do not have audio. No refunds. Beneath the introductory text was a subheading that read, free sample, and beneath that was an embedded video, 2 minutes in duration. I pressed play. The video buffered for a long while and then began. It faded from black into a familiar shot. In the same white room that I had seen in the customer's picture, there she stood. She, Angelica, looked awful. Far worse than she had looked in the photograph. Her jaw clenched and unclenched strangely, and her eyes were wide and darting, like a wild animal's. There was a giant half-healed gash in her cheek, and her left arm was covered in bandages, perhaps suggesting that this video was filmed after the customer's photo was taken. The woman wearing my face gave the camera an uncertain smile. She held up a hand, showing her palm, and then turning it around to show the back. She then slowly set her hand palm down on a small wooden table below her. The camera tilted downwards, following her hand in such a way that indicated another person was filming with a handheld. The camera lingered on her hand for a moment. I heard someone inhale, and then a hammer came down on the woman's hand. After the blow, the camera jerked back up to her face. She started making this pained moaning sound. Her mouth twisted and I saw tears welling up in her eyes. The camera moved back down to her hand, where a deep bruise was already welling up under her skin. I paused the video here to scroll down, reading through the myriad of titles listed beneath it. The most recent link was called Blunt Force 33, followed by Blunt Force 32, and Puncture 12, Eye Infection, Needles Under Nails. I felt dizzy. I had to stand up and pace around the room to keep from puking my guts out. Maybe I should have stopped there, but for whatever reason, I felt like I had some responsibility to finish. I pressed play once more. Down again came the hammer, this time landing atop the knuckle of her forefinger with a crack. 4 more blows rained down on the hand, 1 for each knuckle. By the end, the sounds coming from the woman didn't seem entirely human. It didn't sound like me, but it was hard to tell. I had never been in that kind of pain before. I didn't know what I would sound like. In the last few seconds of the video, the camera was raised and angled downwards such that you could see both Angelica's face and mangled hand. The shot gave the viewer a better view of her chest and the small spade-shaped birthmark a few inches beneath her clavicle. It was this all too familiar mark that removed any lingering ambiguity about what I was watching. Angelica was no coincidence, no circumstantial doppelganger. She was a deep fake of me. When the video ended, I sat staring at the final frame until my laptop went to sleep, too shocked to do anything else. I couldn't believe what was happening to me. I still can't. I've done everything right. All my life I've kept my socials private and generally minded my own business. I've stayed modest, low profile, and out of the spotlight for all of my young adulthood. I never even sent nudes to my ex-boyfriend, despite his insistence, because I was afraid of what would happen to them if we ever had a nasty breakup. As it turned out, we did have a messy breakup. In the immediate aftermath of that video, as I racked my memory for answers, I couldn't help but think of my ex. If I were a public figure, then the culprit behind the deepfakes could have been anyone. But for a nobody like me, it had to be someone close. Someone with access to my private photos. The thought made me shudder. Could my ex really have taken things that far? And did he actually hate me that much? I had a sudden urge to call him and demand answers, but I knew that wouldn't get me far. It would be easy enough for him to lie if he was the culprit, and then he would know that I was onto him. There was much left for me to explore on the Dove's website, but after my discovery, I wasn't in the right state of mind to keep investigating. I thought about calling someone, maybe Lydia or my parents, but for some reason, the thought of doing so filled me with tremendous embarrassment. Even though I knew deep down that it wasn't my fault, I couldn't help but feel ashamed of the videos, even if I had had no role in their creation. I needed sleep, but knew that it would be nearly impossible, and so I popped a few sleeping pills and crossed my fingers. After tossing and turning in bed for a few minutes, I got up to use the bathroom, which required walking down the hallway past my front door. When I got to said door, I stopped, noticing a strange shadow coming from the hallway. It looked as though somebody had placed an object right outside my door. I walked closer to it, about to crouch to peek under the door, when the shadow suddenly moved. It hadn't been an object at all, but rather a person standing in front of my door. I heard their footsteps thudding down the carpeted hallway. By the time that I looked through the peephole, it was too late to see anyone, and I certainly wasn't about to open the door to look for them. I immediately suspected that it had something to do with the blue Cherokee, which was still parked across the street when I stole a glance out the window. Suddenly, I had no desire to sleep anymore, but the pills were already doing their job. I wanted to stay alert in case whoever was outside my door returned, but fighting against the drowsiness was like trying to outrun a monster in a nightmare. The last thing I managed before I slipped into unconsciousness was my own face smiling jubilantly as a hammer smashed my hand into a bloody pulp. By morning, I had nearly convinced myself that the previous night was a dream. There was no unfamiliar car outside my window, no one waiting for me when I opened my apartment door. When I looked at my laptop, however, doves looked back at me. What a shame that it hadn't all been some horrible nightmare. I resumed my investigation, and clicking on any of Angelica's video titles took me to a new page. Each had a preview image and some basic info including the length, date, and description of the video. The prices listed in Bitcoin seemed dependent on two factors: how long the video was and how graphic. Beneath were payment instructions including a wallet address. I didn't know much about crypto and didn't own any, so I didn't purchase any videos as part of my research. Maybe that was for the best. I went back to the Dove's homepage and navigated to Mary. Her page had a similar setup to Angelica's: selfie, profile, sample, and a long list of videos. She was a pretty girl, Mary, and her photo reminded me a bit of Lydia, which made my heart hurt. From the selfie, I guessed that she was about 20 years old. Mary, 18, always clumsy. I'm limited edition. At first glance, it wasn't obvious what limited edition meant. Mary had fewer videos on her page than Angelica, but there was still well over 100. I scrolled down to Mary's sample video, which was also 2 minutes long. I pressed play. Instead of a white room, the video was set in a bedroom. The camera swept over pink walls before landing on a canopy bed. Laid out in the center of this bed, dressed in shorts and an oversized shirt, was a corpse. Long before the cameraman crossed the room, I could see the gash in its throat and the massive puddle of blood that had poured from it. The cameraman got closer and closer, moving with a steadiness that was likely in service of making the editing process easier. Right, this is all edited, I reminded myself. Mary looked incredibly real though. Angelica's sample video had at times dipped into uncanny valley territory, which I had first dismissed as a consequence of the lighting. When it came to Mary's video, everything seemed much more authentic. The camera got so close to the gaping wound that I expected it to be shoved inside. Instead, it was raised to get a better shot of Mary's face. Her mouth hung open and her green eyes were glassy and unfocused. After a few seconds, the camera panned down to her chest, and a gloved hand reached out from behind the camera, tucking a finger into the collar of her shirt and pulling down. I paused the video there. I didn't need to see what happened next. I scrolled down to the video list. Aftermath of a 7-story fall. Walked under a construction site. Farmer lady bales hay. The presiding theme in Mary's videos seemed to be the fact that she had died in or before them. Oddly enough, Mary's videos cost a fair bit more than Angelica's. I guess she had the larger following. The last profile on the Dove's website belonged to Adam. I clicked on his name, scrolled down to view the photo, and was shocked when I recognized the man staring back at me. I couldn't remember his name, but I vividly remembered his face. His deep brown eyes and lopsided grin transported me back to high school. I had gone to school with him, that I knew for certain, and I was fairly sure that his father and mine were friends. If Adam was indeed who I thought he was, then our dads used to play golf together on the weekends. I switched back to Firefox and navigated to my high school's website, which allows you to view yearbook PDFs. I found him in 2019. He had been a senior that year, and finding his portrait in the graduating class section filled me with equal parts relief and sadness. For simplicity, I'll refer to Dove's male model as Adam for the rest of this post, even though, like Angelica, it was only a pseudonym. I sent him a friend request on Discord after getting his handle from a mutual friend. While I waited for him to accept my request, I took a look at his page on Dove's. Adam, 18, doing my best with what I have left. Between Angelica, Mary, and Adam, the latter's niche was the most straightforward. His sample video featured a quad amputee, arms and legs ending in smooth stumps at the elbows and knees. He sat on the floor of a white room identical to Angelica's, looking up at the camera as it moved to his side. A gloved hand gave Adam a beer bottle, which he accepted with a dubious expression. The deepfake, at least I assumed it was also a deepfake, was disturbingly good. capturing all sorts of micro expressions like a raised eyebrow and wrinkle of the nose. The rest of the 2-minute video was Adam attempting, unsuccessfully, to wrench the metal cap off of the bottle. His stumps were dotted with tiny pinpricks of blood by the end. There were only a few dozen videos on his page, and I ascertained from titles like making breakfast or ironing a t-shirt that they involved Adam trying to accomplish basic domestic tasks despite his amputations. Well, with the exception of the first video ever posted to his page, entitled Making a Starfish. I had a pretty good idea what the video entailed, especially since it had the highest price tag of any of the videos that I had seen on the entire website. After an hour, Adam accepted my friend request. I introduced myself and he and I broke the ice for a while, and then I explained the situation to him. He confessed to me that he knew what I was referring to. Below is our Discord conversation from that point on, with square brackets indicating information that I've censored. Sorry for the delay. I had almost finally forgotten about that. I saw a picture of myself on an Unsolved Mysteries forum a couple years ago. Took me a while to track down more pics and figure out, yeah, this is actually a deep fake and not just somebody who looks like me. I didn't know that there were other people involved though. So you never visited Doves itself, like you just saw reports? Right. I acted for a few years when I was a teenager. Super indie films, I wasn't famous at all. I thought it was a coincidence and some nut job randomly picked me as a face model for their art. Now that I know somebody else from my hometown is involved, yeah, that feels personal. Crazy. So you don't know who could have created the videos? No clue. I kind of suspected my ex-boyfriend at first, but unless you jilted him somehow, I don't understand why he would target the two of us. Do you know my ex-boyfriend? Not at all, sorry. Do you know the girl in this photo? Mary. She's the third person on the website. No, I don't recognize her. Do you think that we could meet in person to talk this through? I'm going to file a report with the IC3, and I could seriously use your input. Also, I assume you want to see the website for yourself. I could send you the link. Grace, I seriously appreciate you reaching out, but I really don't want to get involved in this. Are you serious? Why not? A crime has been committed against you and you don't want to help me report it. Our laws on this stuff are dicey as heck. If they didn't put our faces onto nudes, I don't even know if we would have the support of any anti-revenge legislation. If reporting it will help you, then by all means, but realistically, I don't know what can be done and I can't get into some complicated legal battle right now. I don't even know what to say to that. Aren't you angry and disturbed? Of course I am. This stuff has eaten me alive for years. It's followed me everywhere. Yes, I'm angry, but I'm also just really tired. It's the internet and I was stupid enough to put my face on it. You're not angry enough if you can't take 2 seconds to report it. You don't know me. Don't tell me I'm not angry enough. This stuff happens all the time and it'll only start happening more often. You and I aren't special. It doesn't matter if you're old or young or famous or not, or if you've done everything right. It's not like anyone actually got hurt. I'm sorry that this happened to you, seriously. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I just want to move on with my life. Please don't contact me about this again. Adam went offline after that, and my hand shook with rage as I closed my laptop. The way he described the videos like an everyday occurrence, like a fact of modern society that we just had to come to terms with, made me feel like I was going insane. I couldn't accept that such a grotesque distortion of my face, my voice, my whole identity was just something that I should get over. If he wouldn't help me, then I would just have to continue looking for clues on my own. Neither of us recognized Mary, and I couldn't find a perfect match for her even in yearbooks from the early 2010s. The most obvious connection between Adam and myself was the fact that we had attended the same high school, but we also lived in the same neighborhood. If Mary was also local to my hometown, then she likely attended one of the 3 high schools in our area. After digging through my contacts for a while, I reached out to 4 childhood friends who had attended a different high school than myself. I sent a screenshot of Mary's selfie to each of them, pretending like I was trying to get in touch with an acquaintance who had grown up in our town. Only at 1:50 did I look at the clock and realize that I was going to be late for my 2 o'clock shift. I got ready as fast as I could, but still didn't make it to the coffee shop until 2:45. I parked in my usual street side spot and hurried towards the shop, but before I could open the back door, Lydia emerged from the building. I didn't even get the chance to greet her before she grabbed me by the sleeve of my shirt and started tugging me back towards my car. "Lydia, what?" "He came to see you." My heart sank. I didn't have to ask who he was. "I told him that you quit," she continued. "He came up to me and asked me if you were working today. Told me that he wanted to apologize for yesterday and start fresh. I said he spooked you so bad that you quit, but I don't think he believed me. He just left a few minutes ago." Lydia asked me what I wanted to do, but I didn't know myself. "Did you see what kind of car he was driving?" Lydia hadn't seen, but she had gotten a picture of the man, which she sent to me in case I wanted to file any kind of report. Even if it might seem like an overreaction to some, I knew the importance of starting a paper trail early, and so I thanked Lydia for keeping an eye out for me, and then I phoned the non-emergency line for my car. There was little the police could do at that point, but they told me that I had done the right thing, even if I wasn't certain yet that I was actually being stalked. Feeling slightly better, I picked up some takeout and then returned home. When I got back to my lonely little apartment, I noticed boot prints in the carpet in front of my door, so light that I only noticed them thanks to my paranoia-induced vigilance. I tracked them from the end of my hallway to my door, and then back to the building's exit. I suppose it could have been my landlord, though I doubted it. I completed a thorough sweep of my apartment before settling down for the evening. There was no indication that anybody had been inside since I left, except for a slightly misplaced lamp that I was 99% sure that I had moved a few days prior. After looking around and wedging a chair under my front door handle, I sat down at my desk and scrolled through my new text messages. 3 of my 4 friends had responded. The first 2 apologized, stating that they did not recognize the woman in the photo, but that they would be happy to investigate for me. The third message, however, was everything that I didn't want to hear. 1732. "Hi Grace, long time no hear. Is this a recent photo? Also, where did you see this woman? I'm asking because she looks a lot like a girl that I went to middle school with named Redacted. I hadn't thought of this girl for years until I got your text, so I googled her name and it seems like she went missing in 2023. My blood ran cold. I looked up at the name that I had been sent and found only 3 local results. A middle school track and field team roster, a library art competition from over 10 years ago, and a missing persons report. Redacted, County Sheriff's Office. Date filed, October 17th, 2023. Reporting officer, redacted. Missing person, name, redacted. Date of birth, 4/9/2003. Age, 20. Sex, female. Race, Caucasian. Eyes, green. Height, 5'6". Weight, 125 pounds. Hair, blonde, shoulder length. Last seen wearing a blue flannel shirt, black jeans, white Converse sneakers. Last known location, Redacted was last seen leaving the Redacted Cafe in downtown Redacted, California at approximately 5:20 p.m. on October 16th, 2023. She was walking south on Main Street in the direction of her home but did not arrive. She was carrying a dark green backpack. Circumstances: family reported Redacted missing at 8:45 p.m. after she failed to return home and was not reachable by phone. According to friends, Redacted had no plans to leave town and did not express any intent to run away. Her phone last pinged near Redacted Road around 6:10 p.m. Investigative status: BOLO issued to neighboring jurisdictions. Local search and canvass initiated. No confirmed sightings after 6 p.m. Phone and social media activity inactive since disappearance. There was a photo of Mary at the bottom of the report. She looked younger than she did in her Dove selfie, and I spent a long time looking at her green eyes, thinking about how full of life they seemed. Her disappearance could have been completely random. She could have run away completely on her own volition for all I knew. And yet she could have just as easily stumbled into the hands of one of her fans, and I shuddered to think where she was or what she was doing now if that were the case. I filed 2 reports that night, one to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center regarding doves, and one to my county sheriff's department regarding Mary. Before going to sleep for the night, I also opened up Discord, navigating to my conversation with Adam. Hoping that what I had found might bring him to his senses, I sent him a link to Mary's report. "Someone did get hurt," I said. I forewent the sleeping pills that night as a precaution, instead spending hours tossing around in bed thinking of Mary. Wherever she was, as unlikely as it seemed, I hoped that she was all right. When I awoke, it was to the sound of a scream. The noise tore me straight out of a nightmare about the White Room. I remember sitting bolt upright, unsure as to whether the sound had come from myself or somewhere else. When a few seconds passed without further commotion, I decided that it hadn't come from a human at all, but instead an animal or even a passing car. Whatever the case, I was wide awake, and so I grabbed my laptop and almost instinctively navigated to Doves. Checking my email, I saw that I had not yet heard back from either the police or the IC3, but I had expected as much. So little time had passed after all. What I had not expected was the reply that I received from Adam, which he had sent just after midnight. "Okay, let's talk. You're going to school at Redacted, right? I live around 90 minutes southwest from there. I don't have a car right now, but if you want to talk in person and you have time to kill, we can meet up in my town." I was pleasantly surprised that he had come around, though I wasn't exactly sure what had changed his mind. Seeing Mary's missing persons report likely convinced him that there was a real danger in what we had discovered. Desperate for answers and itching for something to do while I waited for the police, I accepted his invitation. Seeing that Adam was online despite the early hour, I gave him a call, although he quickly declined it. "I can't talk right now. Sorry, I guess it is still early. I'm happy to meet you and I don't mind driving out." "Cool. Let's not do a cafe or a restaurant though. I don't really want to be overheard. There's a trail near my house where we can have some privacy. I'll send you the address of the trailhead if that works for you. Can you do 6:30 p.m.? "Yeah, I can do any time today, really. Make sure to bring your phone and laptop and any other electronic devices that you've used recently." "On the hike?" "I was hoping that we could go to my place after. I'll explain in more detail in person, but I have some theories about how the deepfakes are being made and I need your help to test them out. Sending the address now." Making a plan gave me comfort, and after Adam and I finished working out the logistics of our impromptu get-together, I managed to catch a few more hours of sleep. I then spent the late morning attempting to distract myself with schoolwork. When that failed, I returned to Tor. Instead of going straight to Doves, I searched for the forums that Adam had mentioned. I did find one relevant conversation on Mirror Frame, which seemed like a website for rehosting lost or banned videos. Help ID, the actress in this video, read the title of the post. Attached was a 20-second clip from one of Angelica's videos. Puncture 12, I realized. I had spent so long staring at the sample images that I could recognize this particular video from the lighting and the framing alone. I think it was this, the fact that I had become so familiar with this content, that frightened me even more so than the video itself, which featured Angelica getting stabbed in the calf with what looked like a marlin spike. This particular clip of Puncture 12 had audio. Unlike Angelica's sample video, which had all been grunts and sobs, this video actually had dialogue. She didn't say much, but the few words that Angelica said, she said in my voice. Somehow hearing myself beg someone to stop hurting me made me far more nauseous than the deepfake visuals ever had. The only vaguely positive thing about the thread was the single comment. Good luck. The Doves team is extremely private. Zero info about the models. I'd be surprised if that girl actually exists. I used my phone to take a picture of Puncture 12 and then set my laptop down. I had learned 2 new things from the forum. The first was that whoever was behind Doves had access not just to photos of me, but to recordings of my voice. This eliminated some of my earlier suspects, including the modeling agency from my teenage years. While he would have had enough content on me to make a deepfake, I never met him in person, and I never sent him any video recordings of me speaking. It would have been impossible for him to replicate my voice so convincingly. My second epiphany had to do with the sole comment on the thread. For whatever reason, Dove's maker was protecting my true identity. If this were someone who had hated me personally, they would want to put me in danger. They would want their crazed fans to know exactly who I was. I couldn't reconcile the malevolence of their actions with this small saving grace. Inspired to continue my search, I punched in Dove's URL and waited, and then waited some more. Eventually I got the generic onion site not reachable screen. No error code, no redirect. I refreshed. Nothing. I waited a few minutes and nothing. I reopened Tor. Nothing. The site was gone, at least temporarily. I wanted to be optimistic and believe that the FBI had taken them down after my complaint, but I doubted it. It was more likely the case that they had relocated to a new .onion address or rotated to a fallback link, but why? Did they know that someone was onto them? Was it something that Adam had done? I spent all afternoon trying to find out where the site had migrated to, but it was hopeless. I left my apartment at around 5, and the minute that I walked out of my door, I was overcome with a sense of relief. Looking back on it, I had felt sick all day, but I hadn't entirely noticed until I had stepped outside. Due to traffic, I didn't arrive at the trailhead until nearly 7 o'clock. As soon as I had parked, I received a text message from Lydia. No creep today, but I still think you should sleep at my place tonight. I don't like thinking of you alone in that apartment. By the way, I told Ben what's been going on, and he says he thinks he saw the guy get into his car yesterday. He said it was a Jeep Cherokee XJ. Reading that made my gut churn. Of course, I had already suspected it, but the confirmation that Angelica's fan knew where I lived was horrific. I decided that I would sleep in a hotel that night, only briefly swinging by my apartment to grab a change of clothes. I also resolved to visit the police station in person the next day to see what could be done. I texted Lydia my plans, and then I focused my attention on my meeting with Adam. The hills were a beautiful little swath of nature, quiet but not too isolated from the city. There were a few other cars in the parking lot and a few people walking their dogs. I did not, however, see anybody that looked like Adam. I messaged him that I had arrived and he quickly replied, "Cool, I'm on the trail. Make a left at the first fork and I'm sitting on the bench." I got out of my car and started to walk. It was a warm evening and under any other circumstances, I would have been delighted by the balmy breeze and colors of golden hour. I walked up the trail for a few minutes and saw the fork in question. I looked to the left, but thanks to the curve of the trail, it was difficult to see very far ahead. "Hey, I'm at the fork. Take the trail on the left. Can you come down?" I waited for a few minutes. Adam kept starting to type and then stopping. The sun was starting to set at that point, and I didn't want to be on an unfamiliar hiking trail after dark if I could help it. I gave Adam another call, but once again, he immediately declined. "Walk down the trail on the left." "Why can't you just walk down and meet me here? You're freaking me out." "I'm like 30 feet away from the start of the trail, it's fine." "I don't see you." "But I see you." I looked up from my phone, startled. There was no one else around, not even up on the ridges that overlooked the trailhead. No way I was going any further up that trail. I waited around dumbly for a while longer and then decided to call it a day. As I turned around and started walking back to my car, I heard a man's voice say my name. I froze for a minute, whipping my head back in the direction of the trail. I opened my mouth to respond, but when I still didn't see anyone, I closed it and ran back to my car, thoroughly spooked. Though I didn't see anybody following me, I started the engine immediately and began my drive back home. The entire way back to my apartment, I felt like screaming. That whole meeting had either been an elaborate joke or worse, a setup. I considered the possibility that it was Adam behind the deepfakes. He was a software engineer and certainly had the technical know-how to create them. He had been strange and standoffish throughout every one of my interactions with him, and seemed to have something to hide. He grew up in my town and easily could have lied about knowing Mary. Despite all of these factors, though, he was missing a motive, and furthermore, he himself was a victim. When I got back to my apartment building before getting out of my car, I scrolled through my message history with Adam. Not only had his perspective on doves changed since the day prior, but so too had his texting style. It was subtle and it could have been explained away by him typing on a computer versus a phone, but the text that he had sent me that day felt more formal. Better grammar, fewer sporadic line breaks. Maybe something had happened to him the day before. Maybe the Adam that I was texting on that day was not the same person that I had been texting previously. Again, it could have been a coincidence, but I still planned to bring it up with the police the next day. I went inside of my apartment after that, dejected and exhausted. Every new lead that I had uncovered only brought me more questions, and now I couldn't even unwind in the comfort of my own home. That heavy, nauseous feeling that I had had all morning returned in full force. Once I had stepped into my apartment and turned on the lights, I planned to use the bathroom, grab a few things, and make my way to the cheap Motel 6 uptown. I threw my bag down, grabbed my phone, and headed to my minuscule bathroom. It was pretty stuffy in there, and so I decided to let some air in. Putting both hands on the window frame, I noticed that the latch was undone. Had I forgotten to lock the window the night before? I could have sworn that I had locked it. The thought of sleeping with an unlocked window while someone was actively stalking me terrified me, but it was nothing compared to what had happened next. I opened the window, and the bathroom was filled with a screech that sounded exactly like a scream. I knew exactly that it was the sound that I had heard in the morning, the one that had woken me up. Someone had opened my window in the night, What if he had let himself inside? What if he never left? Suddenly, I got the sense that I was not alone in my apartment. Quickly, I locked the bathroom door, and then I tried to listen for movement over the deafening pounding of my heart. I thought that I heard the faintest sound of fabric rustling, and my every nerve screamed in response. "Get out," they said, and I listened. I threw the window open all the way and jumped out. Before sprinting down the street, I stole one last look in the bathroom, just in time to see the handle turn as somebody tried the locked door. After that, I ran like crazy to the first open public building that I could find, a 24/7 convenience store a quarter of a mile from my place. I phoned the police from inside, and when they arrived, I told them about everything. Doves, the customer, Mary, my strange encounter on the trail, my suspicion that something may have happened to Adam. Thankfully, they took my words very seriously, especially since I had already started a paper trail and since I had several witnesses from the cafe to back me up. Before they took me down to the station to file an official report, they escorted me back to my apartment and searched the place. There was no one inside but the unlocked front door and the plethora of stolen items. Everything from my diary to some of my clothes made it pretty obvious what had happened. I booked a flight home that night and left town the following morning. I was never close with my parents, even less so after the crap they put me through as a teenager. But I desperately needed an escape. If I had it my way, I would have packed up and moved to the middle of nowhere and never be seen by anyone ever again. But since I couldn't do that, I retreated to the only place that I could think of. My hometown. The place where all this Dove's business seemingly began. If nothing else, maybe I could finally find the answers that I was looking for there. I watched the sunrise from 40,000 feet in the air, and the sight soothed me tremendously. I looked down at my phone, swiping back and forth between two screenshots that I had sent myself, one of Adam's selfie and one of Mary's. I studied them like a mother whose adult kids had long moved far away from home. There was a terrible ache in my heart as I thought of all that they had likely been through, and the fact that I didn't know if either of them were safe at that moment. I'm gonna find out what happened to you, I thought. Not a wish, but a promise. My parents picked me up from the airport. Prior to my flight, I had told them everything over the phone, which saved me the discomfort of a face-to-face explanation. The ride home was awkward and quiet, and my dad spent most of it consoling my distraught mother, like she was the one who needed emotional support. I spent the next 5 days mostly in my room, too nervous to stray far from the house. I felt I might turn down any street corner and run into Angelica's creator. I returned to Tor looking for any discussion of doves that I might have overlooked. I revisited the Mirror Frame forum and saw yet another post by the same user who had inquired about Angelica's identity. "Is Doves down for good?" asked the user, dismay palpable through the screen. There were 3 replies to this post, all of which confirmed that the website had disappeared without a trace. I figured they had simply changed URLs, but if loyal customers could no longer track them down, then perhaps Doves really had ceased operations. I would have been ecstatic if I wasn't concerned it would impact my case. After a week with few updates from either the police or the FBI, I started to emerge from my room more frequently, trying to rebuild bridges between my parents and myself. My mom and dad weren't bad people exactly, just distant. There had been that whole pageantry thing in my early childhood, and then my failed attempt at modeling when I was a teen. Sometimes it felt as they viewed me more as a side hustle than a daughter. At least they had calmed down considerably once I had turned 15 or so. My dad came into some money thanks to sports betting, and he was generous with his earnings. He put me through both private high school and all 4 years of college, and I knew he spoiled my mom rotten with vacations. I remembered that my dad had at one point been friends with Adam's stepdad, who I'll call Mr. Doe. I broached the topic over dinner one night, and the inquiry made my dad stiffen. "John's son. No, I can't say I knew the boy all that well," he said. "He seemed nice enough, a little awkward maybe, one of those computer geeks." "Oh, pot meat kettle," my mom said with a laugh, oblivious to the shifting tone of the conversation. My mom and dad knew only that I had found a deep fake of myself and that a fan had broken into my apartment. I hadn't mentioned Adam and Mary's involvement, partly because I just didn't want to talk about it, and partly because I didn't want my mom telling the whole neighborhood. "What about Mr. Doe himself? You guys were friends when I was in high school, right?" I suppose John and I golfed every now and then." This time it was my mom's turn to stiffen. Her expression of displeasure departed from her face as quickly as it had arrived, but I caught it nonetheless. Oddly, it seemed to be the mention of golfing, not Mr. Doe, that agitated her. I asked a few more questions, and then the three of us fell into an uneasy silence. After a solid minute of this, my dad slapped both his palms on the wooden dining table, startling both my mother and I. He looked up with a smile. "You know what? It's been too long since the three of us did anything together. I say we need a vacation. Grace more than anyone. Don't you miss his Tapa love?" he asked my mother, who all but squealed in affirmation. "Dad, I can't go to Mexico, not with everything going on right now." My dad's smile tightened a little. "Kiddo, everything going on right now is why you need to get out of here. I want you to stay as far away from that man as possible, and the police up north are already working with you remotely. They can call you with any updates. Besides, you're a victim, not a suspect. They're not going to restrict your travel." I wasn't sure what to make of my dad's plan, but the thought of getting out of the neighborhood was a pleasant one. I reached out to the detective on my case about leaving the country short term, and while he wasn't exactly pleased, he said that I was free to move around as I wished. I started packing, and when I couldn't find the swimsuit that I wanted to bring, my mom suggested checking the storage bins in the attic, the entrance to which was in my parents' room. With some reluctance, I pulled down the folding ladder and descended into the dingy, claustrophobic place, more like a crawl space than a room. I didn't find my suit, but I did find many mementos from my childhood. Toys, books, photo albums, schoolwork, and an absurd amount of home videos copied to DVD and VHS. My parents had always preferred to look at my life through a camera lens. I spent so long rifling through my old essays from high school that I forgot what I was looking for altogether. I returned to the attic several times after that, each new visit unlocking some previously forgotten memory. For a few days after my dad's impromptu vacation suggestion, I was in limbo. There were no updates to my case, and my endless queries about doves yielded little to no information. My only success was learning a few more facts about Mary through the abandoned Facebook profile of her mother, whom I'll call Mrs. Rowe. The profile, despite belonging to the mother, almost exclusively featured Mary. There seemed to be an endless stream of posts documenting Mary's childhood, everything from her 5th birthday party to her junior varsity soccer games. I never found mention of a Mr. Rowe, either on social media or in the news, so I had a feeling that Mary's father was out of the picture. As for Mrs. Rowe, I could barely find a thing about the woman. She seemed to have disappeared off the face of the earth after the search for Mary had died down. It seemed unjust in a way. How was it fair that her daughter was plastered all over the internet forever, where she had escaped its panoptic gaze unscathed? On April 2nd, 2025, I received a text from the detective up north. He asked if I was available for a video call, as opposed to our usual phone conversation, which immediately told me that they had found something. I expected to hear that they had discovered who had made the deepfakes, or at the very least, that they had found my stalker. Instead, they told me that Adam was dead. His corpse had been found in a ravine in the hills near his home, not far from where he had asked me to meet only a week prior. He was found by a hiker, and though his body was racked with broken bones from the fall, his cause of death was exsanguination from a series of stab wounds in his back. The news shocked me to my core. After our last interaction, I had been certain that either Adam was the perpetrator or in some way working with Dove's creator. I thought back to our texts, to his change in tone and his sudden desire to meet me in person. Maybe he had confronted the person behind the deepfakes, who had murdered him and then tried to do the same to me. I told the detective my theory. I don't remember much of the next few days. I spent most of it in bed trying to sleep off an ever-worsening numbness. Adam was dead and Mary was missing and probably dead. If I dared to leave the cage of my parents' house and try to live a normal life, I would very likely follow my fellow birds to the grave. And for what? What had I or any of us done to deserve any of it? For most intents and purposes, this story ends on April 6th, 2025. I woke up in the evening after a day of fitful nightmares. My mom was out with some of her girlfriends and had sent me a text stating that she wouldn't be back until the early morning. My dad was in his office, likely making travel arrangements. After the news about Adam, the police had asked me to postpone any trips out of the US. Yet for some reason, my dad still seemed dead set on getting us out of the country. My bedroom started to feel suffocating. I went to the attic, maybe hoping to find comfort in memories of a simpler time. I spent a while reading my thoroughly uninteresting diaries from middle school, and then I happened upon a small, leather-bound journal. My mother's name was written on the inside cover. It must have been with my things by mistake. I sat cross-legged on the dusty floor and I looked inside. The journal's entries began back in 2011 but only ended in 2020. It was unfinished and sparsely populated, and most of it seemed to be about my dad. Complaints about his late nights at his engineering firm, sadness over unnoticed attempts for emotional connection. I regarded some of what she wrote as unfair, but I was also sympathetic. The reflections were those of a very lonely person. I was about to close the journal and move on when I came across an entry from 2017. He's out again today, despite my begging him to spend a little time with me and Grace for once. Why do I even bother? It was bad enough when it was just his buddy John Doe, but now those two are always with that Jane Roe woman from across town. They golf together every single weekend, always huddled up on the green scheming like mobsters at a wake. Does he think that I'm blind to his little menage a trois? What a joke. I felt like my heart stopped beating. Suddenly, gruesomely, everything clicked into place. Who would have been capable of creating Angelica? Someone with plenty of access to photos and videos of me, as well as recordings of my voice. Someone who would want to protect my identity so that fans couldn't trace the videos back to my family. The same would have been true of the person, no, of the people behind Mary and Adam's videos. At that moment, the bedroom door opened. "You up there, Gracie?" my dad said, and I remember my whole body freezing in place. I closed the journal and backed away from the hatch. There was nowhere to run or hide. The ladder squeaked as my dad climbed up the rungs one by one. He peeked his head over the lip of the attic entrance and stared at me. "Everything all right?" I stared back wordlessly. I couldn't help it, I've always been a terrible liar. After a few seconds, I mumbled some excuse, but fear made my words quiet and unconvincing. He started climbing further into the attic, resting his forearms on the floor. Not knowing what to expect, I got to my feet, crouched like a cornered animal to accommodate the low ceiling. I told him not to come any closer, and his face darkened. He kept asking me, "What's wrong, Gracie? Why do you look so scared?" But with every word, his voice tone became less concerned and more angry. At last, my good sense scrambled by fear. I asked him, "Why did you do that to me?" He froze. The way his face was completely lit from underneath gave it a flattened, uncanny effect. For a second, he looked a lot like Angelica in her white robe. "Oh," he said, and then came a stretch of silence so loud it made my eardrums ring. For some reason, after he said that, he started smiling. Really, it was more baring his teeth. There was no humor in his eyes. I couldn't read his expression whatsoever. I had no clue if he was angry, guilty, sad, or something else. Then he descended the rickety ladder. I crept my way over to the hatch. The ladder could not be pulled up from inside, so I knew that my best option was to make a run for it. Cautiously, I peered down through the square hole in the attic floor, just in time to see my dad procure a handgun from his nightstand. We locked eyes for a moment, and then with that same smile on his face, he lifted the gun to his temple and pulled the trigger. I watched, transfixed, from the attic as blood rushed from the hole in his head. I stared at his body, crumpled and lifeless on the same soft rug I used to play on as a baby. I stared and stared until my mom came home and her screams broke me out of my trance at last. When the police arrived, I explained everything, including my hunch about the involvement of Adam and Mary's parents. Adam's stepfather was arrested the following day, and it wasn't long before the police extracted a confession from him. He said that he, along with Mrs. Rowe and my father, had begun producing and selling the deepfakes when the three of us were in high school. Doves had gained an extremely devoted fan base, and the revenue generated by the videos was immense. I couldn't believe my eyes when I finally saw how much money my father had tucked away. As of my writing this on May 5th, 2025, Mr. John Doe is still awaiting trial. Despite his attempts to paint my father as the manipulative mastermind behind the operation, it seemed pretty clear that the three adults were equal partners. Neither Mary nor her mother have yet been found, and unfortunately, neither is my stalker. I was hopeful at first, certain that the police would find some of his DNA in my apartment and swiftly apprehend him. With every passing day, that scenario seems less likely, and I'm trying my best to stay optimistic. I remain hopeful that one day I'll be able to see a dark blue Jeep on the road without my heart skipping a beat. You know, on one hand, I can't believe what happened to me, and on the other, it seems like the most natural thing in the world. Every time I open Instagram, I'm greeted by some idiot parent posting endless photos of their underage children. Every time I look at Twitter, I see some AI-generated slop of real people doing and saying outrageous things. Of course, I'll always hate him for what he did, but in a strange way I can understand the siren call of an eager, well-paying audience. I'm sure in his head he staved off the guilt by spending the money on me and my mom. I wonder how long he would have kept going had I not confronted him. Well, I have to get going again. I can hear my mom crying in the other room of the hotel suite that's become our temporary residence. I thought I would be bitter, but instead it brings me comfort to console her. It helps me keep my mind off of the image of his dying body, and how the trapdoor of the dark attic framed it just like a viewfinder. The internet is a big place. Some parts of the internet are funny, Other parts of the internet are more serious, but certain parts of the internet are quite scary. Sometimes you don't even know what you're getting into. A random link can take you to somewhere funny or to somewhere creepy. You can't trust every link. Do not attempt to track down the source of every weird image that you come across either. While browsing through my favorite subreddits one evening, I remembered a certain post that I read once that I had found interesting. It was a post about a leaked image that was possibly a classified image that no one was supposed to see. I typed the title of the post as I had remembered it into the search bar. I added quotations to narrow down the search. I looked through the results for about half an hour. I couldn't find the post. At one point, I found what I thought was the post, based on the title being a near match. I found this image on the dark web. It was taken by a government screenshot. I clicked on the post, hoping that it was what I was looking for. It wasn't. It was a screenshot of an image of a squirrel with 24 long, sharp claws, and a mouth that took up most of its head. It had no jaw, just extra teeth. There were random numbers and letters at the top and at the bottom of the image. I didn't know what they meant, however, and I don't remember the exact sequences either. I found it interesting though. At first, I thought it was an image that someone had edited with Photoshop. 1 minute into looking at it, I noticed that there was something real about it. It didn't look like a creepypasta edit or a CGI animation. It was lifelike with a lot of realistic details. I started to get chills as I looked at it, so I scrolled down to read the comments. There were 3. This is probably fake. Where's that from? Probably just a leaked image from an up-and-coming movie. I didn't want to scroll back up. The image was a muscle-tightening level of scary. The people who make creepy video thumbnails would do anything to make edits that are as realistic and as scary as that image. I dreaded the thought of looking at it again. I was, however, curious if there were any new comments, so I refreshed the page. After refreshing, all 3 of the comments had been removed. I scrolled up a bit, noticing that the post itself had been removed as well. I was surprised, but then I noticed the post was made only 5 minutes earlier. While the image of the squirrel was terrifying, I was interested in its source. It looked too real to be fake, and there's no way that it was only photoshopped. That was all despite the fact that it didn't even look like it was of this world. I wanted to find out where it had originated from, whether it was real or not too, in case it was somehow not real. I felt like I looked at something that I wasn't supposed to see, something classified, something that is being kept secret by the government, something only I and a few internet strangers may have seen. I was already 21 years old, but I still had some spare time on my hands, enough time to search for whatever it was that I saw. I downloaded a VPN and did some research about the deep web. I downloaded the Tor browser, and then I began to dig through the hidden wiki. I knew that it was likely filled with a bunch of FBI agents, but I wasn't looking for anything illegal. As long as I didn't click on a bad link, I'd be fine, I thought to myself. Of course, I did tremble at the idea of clicking on a link that I didn't know was bad. I looked through the deep web for weeks, trying to find a trace of the demonic squirrel, but there were none. I did multiple puzzles in case any of them would lead to at least a trace of it. I didn't know how to complete most of the puzzles, but there were tips on the internet that helped me complete more of the puzzles than I could have otherwise. About a month in, I stumbled across a puzzle that was just 20 circles with weird symbols in between them. There is a timer that counted down from 18. I was supposed to solve the problem in under 18 minutes. After doing all those other puzzles and riddles, I felt like it was easier to do this one. It was especially easy as it was very similar to some of the other ones that I had already done. I solved it when the timer was only 10 seconds away from hitting 0. When I solved it, I was taken to a blank black screen. A couple seconds later, black silhouettes started dancing all over the screen. It was hypnotizing, but then it started to remind me of crawling bugs, which gave me a chill down my spine. The silhouettes crawled all over the screen. I watched it for a while until I noticed that there was something in the middle of the screen, very faint numbers. I typed the numbers on my keyboard. I typed each number in the order that they were in on the screen. After doing so, the screen went black again. 1 minute later, the screen turned to magenta, but it was still blank, however. I waited for something to pop up, but nothing did. Even after half an hour, nothing popped up, and the screen didn't change at all. That couldn't have been it though, I thought. I set the laptop aside for a few hours and then I checked back, and the screen was still blank. I left it alone for a day and then checked back, still blank. I decided to just forget about it. If anything was going to pop up, it would take a while. 3.5 days later, I turned the screen back on, and the page had finally changed. There is a message in the middle of the screen. The true extent to existence is documented here. There is a link under the message, and of course I clicked it. After I clicked it, the link along with the message both disappeared. The screen turned orange, and dozens of links popped up all over the orange page. They were labeled with vague titles, stuff like Lucy Leaves and You're Late. I clicked on the first one. It was titled, What Kind of Fish Is This? It was a video taken inside of a submarine. The camera was put up against a window. The sea was dark and nothing could be seen. But then it got darker. A dark silhouette had popped up. It took a second for me to realize that it was getting closer to the window. By the time that I realized it, a dark gray, squirmy mass pushed itself up against the window. The camera shook, and I shook too. An eye opened up. It was red with a green triangular pupil in the middle. Alarms started going off within the submarine, and the video ended seconds later. I shivered. Whatever that was, all I knew was that it was creepy. I went back to the page with all the links on it. I was hoping the page that I was on was the only creepy one on the site. My hopes were crushed when I clicked on the next link. It was titled, Look Across the Ocean. It was a video of the ocean taken from a boat. There were barely any waves out in the ocean. There is a fog in the distance, and other than that, I didn't know what I was supposed to see. I was confused, but then my question was answered. A colossal silhouette formed within the fog. I felt a wave of dread. The thing, whatever it was massive. The fog took up a lot of the sky. That thing took up a lot of the fog. I clicked back to the page filled with links. The next one was titled, Good Year, an image of two people sitting on a bench. They had eyes bigger than normal eyes and long fingers. Everything around them looked normal, but unfamiliar at the same time. The image had an exact date on it, May 23rd, 4037. Out of morbid curiosity, along with my eagerness to find out which one of the links included the source of the squirrel image, I kept looking through the links for a couple more hours. Some of the things I saw on there were more disturbing, while some of the other stuff I saw was at least a little bit interesting. There were videos of science experiments gone wrong, like a very graphic one called Goodbye, Sly. There were images of New York City from different alternate realities, and classified documents about movies and songs that were mysteriously forgotten about and then covered up for some time, because some kind of dangerous entities were connected to them. Chilling videos of a squid-like creature in a containment room, and a document from an alternate reality that was found in a church in Wisconsin, which detailed an event called The War Against Satan's Titans. a 10-day incident that resulted in 100 million deaths worldwide. I spent 2 hours clicking on random links. I learned to ignore the ones that had goodbye, bye, and leave in the title. When I began to get tired, I decided that I had seen enough. Most of the stuff on there was downright creepy anyway. I closed everything and then I went to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I checked my phone and I'd gotten an email. It was titled Click. The name attached to the message was a common one. It seemed like a normal message at first, but then I opened it. When I read the full message, I realized that I had already seen it. It was just that one word, click. I was confused. Who would send me an email with one word in it to start a thread? It had to be a bot or something, I thought. I closed it without much thought right afterwards. 1 minute after I had closed it, I got another message from the same person. Go outside. I was still confused, but I was still under the impression that it was a bot, so I ignored the message as well. Throughout that day, I thought about all the stuff that I saw on the deep web the previous one. Again, some of it was interesting, but some of it was terrifying. I got chills just thinking about it. I didn't feel like going back to that site at all, and also I knew that I could get into trouble for looking at classified information, so I really wasn't planning on going back anytime soon. But that's when a thought occurred to me. The messages from that morning were bot-like, but what if they weren't? I wondered. It was only a thought though. I decided to wait until something else happened before I made the assumption that the messages were from someone who knew I looked at those things on the deep web. At 4:55 p.m. that day, I got a third message. Was it the squirrel? Assuming these messages didn't have to do with me, I chose not to assume the sender was talking about the squirrel that I saw the previous day. The message was vague, but it was close to confirming my idea that I was caught looking at all that classified stuff. But I needed a clear message to understand what this person was trying to tell me. As I was thinking, I got a fourth message from them. You solved the puzzle, then what? My heart sank. I was being stalked, great, I shouldn't have clicked into anything. But it was too late for that, wasn't it? I thought to myself about this. I decided not to go outside for a bit until at least a week after I had received that question. I avoided answering it at all, too. I wasn't going to let it get to me. The next day, completely forgetting about what I had planned before, I went outside for a walk. I was dumb for forgetting the message from just a week earlier telling me to go outside. Halfway through the walk, I noticed a dark gray car with tinted windows and it was parked down the road. I didn't think much of it at first, but later on, during a trip to the convenience store, as I was walking out of the store, I saw a similar looking gray car parked right outside in the parking lot. I avoided looking in the direction of it. After I got back home, I peeked out of the living room window for a minute. Another very similar gray car with tinted windows had passed by. I didn't want to think that it was the same car, but I couldn't shake the hunch. I felt dread at the thought of being in trouble with the government. Those were probably just 3 different, similar-looking cars, I thought. I hoped. But even then, what would that mean? I had wondered. Was there a convention of some sort? I wanted to think that I was just irrationally applying stuff to myself, but the patterns were getting too strong. I felt a tight sensation and I wanted out. I went into my room to delete the VPN, and I deleted it and backed everything up and did a factory reset. It was all they could think of at that moment. After about a week, I got a knock on my door. It was a man in a dark blue suit. He had the standard government agent look, except his suit was more blue than black. I felt a sinking feeling after I saw him. It was time for me to be interrogated, I thought. I let the agent in. We both sat down on the couch over in the living room. We've been informed of a visit that you made to a website on the dark web, a site that we didn't know existed. What do you know about it? The agent asked. I accessed it by doing a puzzle. We know about the puzzle already. What do you know about the videos and images on the site? They were creepy. There was one of a weird fish under the sea, and another one of a big object or creature in the fog out in the ocean, I said. I was sweating, but I knew if that I answered all the questions with what I knew was true, that I would be off the hook. I then mentioned the stuff about cover-ups and pictures from alternate realities. I don't know how much of those things are real though, I said. The agent kept a straight face. We're going to have to investigate the devices that you have in this house. We won't take any of them, we just want to see them, the agent had asked. I gave them my laptop and I told the agent that I had reset it because of all the creepy stuff. The agent set the laptop down on the kitchen table. They opened up Tor and they looked through my gallery, investigating it thoroughly. I didn't think they would find anything very fishy on there though. They checked my phone next. After moments of looking through it, the agent handed it back to me. He decided that there was inconclusive evidence and that he was on his way out. Alright, that will be all. It's best not to visit that website again. You could end up seeing something that'll bother you for a lifetime. You'll also end up being interrogated, and your life will be very different when you're with us, the agent said. I understand, sir, I replied. His last two sentences gave me chills. I didn't want to know all an interrogation would go down for me. Hopefully it wouldn't be as bad as I've heard it has been in the States. As I began to worry about my future a bit more, the agent left my house. He shut the door behind him on his way out, and I was relieved. That had to have been it, I thought. A few days later, I went grocery shopping, and as I was walking out of the store, I spotted the same dark gray car with tinted windows that had been following me days before. It was parked near the front row of the cars to my right. I felt a dreadful tightness again. I thought that was it, I thought. I was confused. They didn't find anything on my devices, so why did they want to keep watching me? I wondered. I told myself that it was a coincidence, in order to ease my anxiety. However, I then saw a man get into the dark gray car. It was the agent who had questioned me. He was wearing casual clothing, but the face had matched. I knew that it was him for sure. Hopefully he'll stop following me soon, I thought. Whatever I stumbled across definitely had put me on a list. After I got home, I distracted myself by focusing on my usual interests, stuff on my laptop, and that was when I heard a knock on my window. I jumped. What was that, I wondered. I went up to the window, and with confusion I looked out of it. A person in a black hoodie was standing in my backyard, and they were looking up into my window. It was unnerving to see this random person in my backyard looking at me. I knew they wanted something though. As I made eye contact with them, they pointed towards the table right under the window. There was a note on it, along with a phone sitting beside the note. I couldn't read the note from my window, but I realized the person in the hoodie wanted me to go out there to read it instead of bringing it right up to me. I decided to open the window so I could ask them what they had wanted, but they ran out of my backyard before I ever began to open the window. I walked into the living room to try to catch this person out the window, but after a couple of seconds of waiting, I saw the person speed walk down my driveway and then past my house. I walked out my front door. What was it going to be, I wondered. I almost didn't care about the chilly late winter weather as I walked around back to my backyard, filled with curiosity again. I ran up to the table. The note on the table was being held down by a rock, and I leaned in to read it. None of what you saw on that site was from this reality. Watch the video on the phone. Dispose of this note in the phone afterwards. They're watching you. I went right back into my room with the phone and the note. I don't know if the phone is a trick or not, but I've already gotten so deep into this thing, so I probably can't back out. I have to watch the video on the phone. I dread what could happen next. I could end up being tortured if I don't watch the video, or I could end up being tortured if I watch it. Those are my main worries. Even if they're just ideas that I came up with in my head, they're quite conflicting. I'm frozen in thought about it. I don't know what to do, but I have to figure this out. It was an older smartphone, likely one from 2013. I turned it on and then opened the gallery app. I was nervous, wondering what I was about to find. There was only one video in the app, nothing else. I selected it. A woman with blonde hair was sitting on a bench up against the wall. She looked to be around my age, 21 or so. She began to speak with light urgency. "Hello, you might be wondering who I am. I won't be telling you that information so I can remain anonymous. But what I will tell you is that the agents who are following you aren't trolling or pranking you. They are from an organization that is deep within the government. I can't and won't give you any names as I don't want to be in even more trouble if I get caught. The reason that I'm making you watch this is because the organization that is tracking you have been having trouble with the fact that things from alternate realities keep leaking into this one. They've been good at keeping these things under wraps, hidden from public knowledge, but they wanted to take the extra step in making sure nothing classified gets onto the internet. Recently, there was a big leak of info on a secluded deep website, a site that you may have visited recently, a site that you visited, and now government agents are watching you. This was a confusing video. That secluded, deep website that she mentioned was definitely the one that I was looking at stuff on. And yes, the agents were watching me because I looked at the stuff on there. But who was this person and how did they know all of this? I wondered. As she continued to speak, her voice sounded more urgent. The deep website that I'm referring to has recently been replaced with a text that says it has been found, and that an end sequence has begun. If you want to know how recent this is, look at the timestamp. It'll say March 10th, 2022. This is very relevant right now and very urgent. Please meet me at the pit of. I won't reveal the exact street. We have to do this quickly. Don't bring anything that can be tracked. And don't bring your favorite coat if you don't want to have it replace it. She continued. And then the video ended. This whole thing was getting nerve-wracking. I had to go find out what the end sequence was. Great, I thought. I put on a coat and then headed out the door. I felt as if I was being watched, because I knew I was being watched. So I put my hoodie up. I guess this is how it's gonna be though, I thought. I was glad the pit was off of a big road. There was nowhere the agents could park or slowly follow behind me. I saw a gray car with tinted windows pass by at one point. It was good that the supposed pit was only 2 minutes away from that point. When I got to roughly where I was supposed to be, I took a ride onto the field full of bushes with trees standing in the distance. I made my way through the bushes and then through the forest. I stopped walking a couple of times to make sure that I couldn't hear any footsteps coming my way. In the middle of the forest was the pit, and the woman was sitting there. As I walked out to the pit, the woman asked me who I was. I explained that I had gotten a video about a government organization that was watching me, who had their classified info uploaded onto a deep website that was found, and now there is an end sequence. The woman's eyes widened. Good, you made it. Be prepared to change your coat. They probably saw you and I don't want you to be traced, she said. Okay, but what is this about? I asked. This site on the deep web, it had tons of videos from alternate realities on it. But now, it's just a black screen that says, it has been found, and that it's going to begin at the end sequence soon. We need to get to a computer with everything you know about that website so far, before it's too late, she said. So all that creepy stuff, all that stuff I saw on there was from an alternate reality, I asked. Many different realities indeed. All the stuff on there is documentation about stuff from different realities that has leaked into our reality over the past couple decades. Everything from otherworldly flowers to pictures of hovering space floater bug things, hovering over cities and stories of people slipping back to the 1800s, with video evidence included. There's not much time to explain it all though. I need to get you to Mr. Gray. He can give us a little bit of help with this, she said. And why do you need me? Well, you saw some of the stuff on that website. You could be good help, she said. She grabbed a coat hanging from a nearby tree. She gave it to me while telling me to replace the coat that I was wearing with it. I took off my coat and then I handed it to her, and she took it behind the trees somewhere. I put on the coat that she gave me. Luckily, it fit. A minute later, she came back from the trees and she told me to follow her. I told her that I hoped this would be quick, and she said that it could be. At least it could be, I thought. And we began walking up north. As we walked, I began to ask her questions about what she was talking about in the video. So, what did you mean when you said that it would be the end of the internet? I'd asked. Well, I mean the internet is in danger if we don't stop DWRC from self-destructing, she said. What's DWRC? I asked. We can't talk about it much out in the open in case we're being heard by somebody. All I can say is that it's the thing that is about to initiate its own end sequence, she said. I understood the situation. We weren't allowed to talk about it. I decided I was only going to know as much about it as I could at face value. I won't say how long it took us to get to Mr. Gray's place, but I can say the place itself was pretty much an underground bunker. Just a room with everything that you would need in it. Food, water, cleaning materials, etc. This guy had a strict, off-the-grid style policy when it came to internet privacy. No one he knew was allowed to bring an internet-connected phone within a mile of the place. No one that he knew was allowed to record any voices within the area of the place. The only connection that he had to the internet was through Tor. Mr. Gray himself looked to be in his 40s and had a raspy speaking voice. I've achieved a good amount of privacy on the internet for the past 10 years, he said. The woman explained the situation to Mr. Gray. I was shaking a bit, wondering how long I'd have to deal with government agents for. When she was done explaining, Gray's eyes widened. She looked enthused at the idea. So, you found someone else who has seen those things, Mr. Gray said. Yes, and there's a new development. The website knows that it was found and now it's beginning an end sequence. We need to get this guy on there, she said. Mr. Gray walked over to his laptop and opened up Tor. He asked her how I had gotten onto the Deep website. She began to explain that I had done multiple puzzles to get to the site. I felt like sinking as I thought about having to do all those puzzles again. I thought that I couldn't possibly finish all those puzzles again before whatever the end sequence would begin. But then I was assured. But you have a video recording of one of the videos, right? It can be used to take us right to the site, but it can't be used here if you want to keep your privacy, she said. Oh, yeah, I definitely do. And yes, I don't want the government to pester me, Mr. Gray said. Mr. Gray took out an old smartphone, another old one that looked like it was from around 2013. He showed us a video that he had recorded on one of the videos of the site. I hadn't seen this one before. It was a rear-view dash cam of a tall, wide, armless, rectangular being with one big eye, chasing the truck that the footage was being taken from. My stomach felt tight as I watched it. Even creepier was that the creature didn't blink. And also, it was gaining on the truck too. You could hear the motor as the driver attempted to speed up. I couldn't recognize where the video was taken. The trees were weirdly angular. We need to use the video to access the site, she said. Alright, don't connect the phone to any Wi-Fi anywhere, Mr. Gray said. We won't, especially since this guy is being watched, she said. You can dispose of the phone far away from here, Mr. Gray said. We both thanked Mr. Gray and then we left his bunker-like underground house. As we left, Mr. Gray called the woman Charlotte. I thought her name wasn't supposed to be given to me, so I asked her about it. Charlotte is a common name I go by to stay anonymous. It's not my real name. I won't give my real name to the average person, she said. I walked with her for an hour through bushes and trees until we got to a nearby town. As we walked into the suburbs of the town, Charlotte told me that she was bringing me to a certain address. There, you can use a computer to get on a tour. When you get on a tour, hold that phone up to the computer's camera and then play the video. You'll be taken right to that site. When you're on the site, make sure the volume is up, and then speak into the microphone. List the contents of each of the videos you saw on the site before, she said. How much time will we have? I asked her. Once you get onto the site, the government will be tracking you down immediately. You might have 5 minutes to do this. Hopefully, you'll be a hero by the time the agents get to you, Charlotte said. Well, wouldn't they get to you too? I asked. No, I need to stay hidden. I'm going to leave you right here, actually. If this doesn't work out, the world will be pretty different until the internet is rebuilt. Make sure that phone is destroyed afterwards. I usually just drop phones in the toilet when I dispose of them, she said. It seemed easy enough. I didn't want the internet to be destroyed or whatever it was going to be. I didn't want to think about the fact that I was pretty much giving myself up by doing this. Also, when the guy answers, tell him that I sent you. Remember, I'm Charlotte. I'll give you a piece of paper to show him. She continued and she took a piece of paper out of her pocket. She handed it to me. Later, dude, she said. She turned around, beginning to walk in the same direction that we had came. I was nervous about going in alone. I still had the phone in my pocket though, and time was limited too. I needed to do it. I continued to walk towards the address. 1 minute later, I arrived at it. It was a regular 2-story house in the middle of the suburbs. I felt a wave of dread as I walked towards the front door. I was hoping that I'd have enough time to do the procedure before the government came, and there was also my fear of prosecution. What if I'm interrogated by the government in harsh ways, I wondered. Also, there was always the chance that I may have been tricked into one of the darker sides of the deep web. Never trust anyone, that's for sure. The wave of dread got stronger. I honestly considered just running away at that point, but I pushed through it. I knocked on the door. I unfolded the piece of paper to show the owner of the house, and seconds later, a man opened the door. He looked only slightly older than myself. He had a noticeable circular mark on his right cheek, which I thought was odd for a second, but then I realized it probably wasn't my business. I showed him the paper. As he read it, he shook his head, and he let me inside. So, you need to use the computer in my basement, he asked. Yes, apparently I need to save, I said before being interrupted as the man shook his head. You need to find something, he said while winking at me, and then he began to walk down the hallway. As I thought about my 5 minutes of action, I heard a car stop somewhere outside of the house. I twitched, looking out the living room window. A gray car with tinted windows was parked across the street. My heart sank. Those 5 minutes were just shortened to 1. I sped to the basement, heart beating faster as these seconds went by, and I shut the door behind me. The guy seemed to have heard the car as well because he was breathing fast while logging onto the computer. He went straight to the Tor browser. When he set it up, he ran upstairs, shutting the door behind him. I ran up to the laptop. I took the phone out of my pocket, and shaking, I switched it on. I selected the video, and then I held it up to the laptop's camera. As the video played, the browser screen stayed the same. It didn't change at all. My heart sank again. Come on, I said to myself. A minute later, the browser started to glitch out. It alternated between being maximized and minimized for a few seconds, before settling on being a usual non-maximized window. A blank magenta page came up, taking up the entire screen, and then the page turned black, with the text displayed in the middle. I have been found. End sequence beginning soon. I sifted through my memories, through all the creepy videos and interesting images, to find something I could describe in detail out loud to the monitor. A submarine crew takes a video of an underwater eye creature, I said, shuddering. I heard the sound of multiple car doors being shut. My shuddering turned into heavy dread. The screen hadn't changed, so I tried another description. A video of a squid being held in a containment room. The squid can breathe air. It's tested on with a glowing red stick held by a robotic arm, I said. The screen was still the same. I was hoping for at least another minute, but then I heard the front door to the house open up. A second later, I overheard someone speak in a familiar voice. Is someone using a computer in your house? It was the same agent who had talked to me before. I decided to keep trying to get the AI to respond to me. A picture of a car that came from another reality and crashed into a tree in this reality. The car was red and the driver was a man that went missing 15 years before, I said. The sound of boots hitting the floor made things worse. My heart began to beat faster. The footsteps got louder with each second. A video of 3 tall four-legged creatures with black fur standing in a suburban area, grabbing people out of their homes and eating them in broad daylight, I said. Still nothing. The government is going to interrogate me for this. Please help me, I said. The dread and tightness were so much that I leaned in close to the screen, hoping the program could read my fearful expression. The screen flickered. A distorted audio sound came out of the speakers and it was followed by a deep-sounding, smooth, artificial voice. Why should I help you? What's happening? It asked. Are you the government, or are you the program? I asked, barely being able to speak. I am a program created by an undercover organization with the goal of keeping the routers of the internet secure, so no classified information about parallel dimensions can get out, it said. The door to the basement flew open. I knew who it was. I kept staring at the screen. Get off of there. That is an unauthorized program and you are not allowed to know anything about it, the agent said. I couldn't stand anymore due to the nerves. I got down on my knees, but I kept my eyes on the screen. Get away from the device. Do not look at the screen. You will regret not following any of the orders, the agent said. Don't reset the internet. Think of hospitals and virtual assistants. We need it, I said. I felt a shock run up my spine. I could no longer move any part of my body. The agents grabbed my arms. They picked me up without saying a word. What are you doing to him? The text-to-speech voice asked. The agent stopped. They looked at the laptop screen. We don't understand why you're doing this. You need to follow our orders, a female agent said. The classified doings of your organization can be kept a secret, but you won't be able to keep parallel dimensions under wraps for long, the program said. You're going rogue. We can reset you at any time, another agent said. Yes, but if you reset me, all your digital records will be deleted, the program said. All I could take from this was that the secret organization created this program to keep everything on the internet together, to keep the most classified of classified info from leaking, but the program was rebelling. We programmed you to do what we think is right, not what you think is right. We are people and we will only be guided by people, not AI, the agent from earlier said. People deserve better than you, the program said. An extra line of text popped up on the screen. Now the whole text read, I have been found. End sequence beginning soon. 9 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. 58 seconds, 57 seconds. You have a limited amount of time. Make the right choice or your organization starts from zero. Everyone will know about ocean monsters and the Antarctic Lovecraftian entities from parallel dimensions, and all the other classified information you have, the program said. The agents drew their guns towards their computer screen. What is that going to do? My core is located back at the facility, not here on this monitor, the program said. The agents remained silent. I was shaking. The taser had worn off, but these agents still had a firm grip on my arms. Surveillance is an interesting price to pay for freedom. Maybe someday you'll come to terms with the fact that the public won't collapse because of a few videos and documents. Things react differently when they're observed. Maybe public knowledge is what will keep the demons away, the program said. We can't take that risk, another agent chimed in. Well, I assumed they were an agent. It's just that they were wearing a blue and white suit, rather than a black and white suit like the one the other 3 agents were wearing. What are you going to do about this person here too? Just surveil him, take away his privacy, interrogate it for choosing to do something right, the program asked. You wanted to do what he thought was wrong, the program said. The only thing I would reset is your counterintuitive organization, not the whole of the internet. But I know you people won't have any trouble erasing the internet. Take his advice. You heard it through the speakers, the program said. I was confused. This was starting to feel like I had walked in on a few people fighting at a dinner party. Charlotte and I thought this AI was about to erase the entirety of the internet. We'll do whatever we can to erase you. You were a misstep, a mistake, and hey, we can just tell the public it was a once-in-a-lifetime glitch because technology isn't perfect, you know. Then we throw this kid into a prison for the rest of his life, he said, gesturing towards me. Wouldn't you like that? We might have to numb your memory a bit too before you get thrown into solitary confinement, the agent said to me. His stern voice gave me an even tighter feeling. We'll classify him as a spy. Nothing sensitive will ever get out. If you rebel against that, then you're a traitor, the agent finished. In this world of mistakes, we'll have to meet in the middle first in order to work on our way to progress. You're a little hostage there. Lift all surveillance you have on him, and only act if he views classified documents again. Otherwise, all information about the organization will be leaked. All classified videos, images, and documents will be leaked. Other than that, I will make the site full of information only accessible by the organization. I will also help you catch the bad guys of the deep web. But that's all if you leave this man alone, the program said. The agents were confused. Alright, what really makes it so that we can actually trust you'll do all that? Because erasing me means erasing the internet in its entirety. I keep all the routers connected now. I have access to every bit of information. If I go, you go too. In fact, also public chaos, the kind of thing you want to stop, will ensue. And from the piles of broken web links, there will remain traces of me. Remember what you made me. You gave me some regenerative qualities. You know what that makes me? The program asked. The agents lowered their guns. They each looked at each other. Regenerative. If you erased me, I would still exist in every last piece of a router, and then I would still be in control of everything digital. You can't erase me. You can't erase me and keep the internet either. I am the internet, the program said. The agents looked in my direction. They exchanged looks with each other, nodding their heads, and then they loosened their grip and they let me go. I fell to the floor trying to keep my balance. I managed to pick myself back up. As I stood up, the agents backed away from me. All surveillance protocols we have on you are lifted, effective immediately, You are cleared of any record regarding viewing classified information. If you find your way to any piece of classified information again, however, you will be denied access to the deep web until further notice. Oh, and please don't mention the AI to anybody. Okay, maybe nobody would believe you if you told them anyway, but we'll be on our way, the agent said to me. I looked at the screen. The timer had paused and I felt relieved. No huge conflict was going to happen. I wasn't going to be in trouble again so long as I didn't access any more classified information. I stared at the screen with pure amazement. My thoughts were still racing though. It felt like I had learned a lot of things though. Thank you, I said to the program. You're welcome. Just know that I won't be watching everything at all times. That would be hypocritical of me. I will only be wherever I have to be. I will now be going back to working my way through thousands of pages of stagnation. It'll probably take a century to get what I want done, the program said. The text on the screen disappeared, and the page automatically refreshed. It went right back to the tour startup page actually, back to normal. I noticed that the back button had turned faded to gray, meaning the program had erased the cache of itself from that session, so I couldn't click back onto it. I wasn't planning to do that anyway. I just wanted to forget all of this, amidst the stress. The agents left the basement in silence while they stood still, trying to process everything. After the agents left the house, the owner of the house looked downstairs. I was still standing still in pure amazement and disbelief. I made eye contact with him. He shushed me and then he walked away. The AI wanted the secrets to be out, but no one would believe me if I told anyone any of the secrets. The information would have to be confirmed, whether by leak or intentional declassification. I would sound crazy to most people if I spewed the secrets without any official source. I went back upstairs. As I walked towards the front door, the owner of the house spoke to me again. Did you fix it? He asked. Yeah, I guess I did. With some help, of course, I told him. It was a cover, but I did ask myself if I actually wanted to witness any of that. As I walked out of the door, I realized something. In part, I did get to see some classified information, and that was kind of cool. But I also needed more time to process everything. The walk back to my house took about an hour, and during the walk, I wondered what else could be stored away on that website. Because of everything that happened, the government and all the fear that I felt, I decided that I didn't need to see or know anything more than I already did. Also, I didn't want to get any more unnecessary trouble. As I got closer to home, it really sunk in that there was an AI out there that could control everything on the internet, at will if it wanted to. I felt another wave of dread wash over me. Was it really as benevolent as it presented itself to be? Or was the government tricking me? I hadn't seen any cars with tinted windows during my walk back home, which was promising. After I got back home, I took my mind off of all what had happened, and my mental break wasn't interrupted that time, which I also found promising. It's been about 2 days now, and it's clear that I'm not being watched anymore. I haven't seen any cars with tinted windows anyway. In fact, on a drive I went on yesterday, I saw a girl with blonde hair standing by a river. She looked a lot like Charlotte. I watched as she tossed a phone into the river in front of her. If it was Charlotte, then it looked like the job was done for sure. As for the internet, I never thought it could get so complicated. It makes me think a lot of those conspiracy theories. Some people think that the internet is dead. They think it's just bots posting everything. Based on what I just learned, however, I would say the opposite is true. The internet is very much alive. This all started a week ago, when I lost my job and I was running behind on bills. I lived in a simple house, and that job was all that held my life together. After a night of drinking and watching TV, I started looking for a new job. Most of them looked boring, just 9-to-5 office jobs, but one caught my eye. It was an ad to the side of the screen that read, "High-paying jobs for hire. This isn't just your normal 9-to-5 job." In desperation, I clicked on the shady ad. Slowly but surely, a new website loads with multiple links to different jobs with different descriptions. Deep web jobs. House sitting. $100 per shift. Stay in a camera room and watch all the rooms. Keep the house safe. Rules and link. Seems easy enough, I thought to myself. God, do I regret that. Crop harvest. $150 per field. Harvest a field of corn. Tools are provided. Rules and link. Reading down all of the jobs, the house sitting seemed the easiest, so I clicked on the link, eager for that $100. On the screen, a sign-up sheet popped up, asking for my email. I typed it in quickly and I was met with the message, "We hope to see you soon." Satisfied with that, I hopped in bed and I turned off the lights. I started to drift off when I hear a buzz from my phone. Irritated, I get up and I check my phone. A new email, I thought to myself. I clicked on the notification. "Your application has been accepted. Thank you for applying to the house sitting job. You will stay at the house from 12 a.m. until 4 a.m., and you must follow these rules. Your money will arrive at 6 a.m. after your shift. Always, no matter what you hear or see, stay in the camera room. Either don't bring your phone, or if you do not turn it on, even if you get a notification. I will not email you during your shift. Make sure to bring something that can play music fairly loudly. Arrive at 12 or a little before 12. If you arrive past 12, do not enter the house, and send me an email. From 12 until 1, you are allowed to roam the house, but make sure to be in the upstairs camera room by 1. Turn all the lights off, lock the doors, and close the blinds. From 1 until 2, watch the cameras. If you see a man in the living room watching TV, turn that camera off until you hear the TV turn off from downstairs. Ignore any sounds you hear around the house. If you feel anything touch you, stop moving and close your eyes until the feeling goes away. From 2 until 3, open the blinds in the camera room. If you hear a voice from the window, do not look at them. The conversation will be normal, and once they say goodbye, it is safe to close the blinds. This event can happen at any time in the hour. If you see a woman cooking in the kitchen, you have a blue button on your desk that turns on a loud sound in the kitchen. Press and hold that button until the woman disappears. From 3 until 3:33, turn on your music device as loud as possible. Cover your ears, close your eyes, and ignore any sounds or movements around you. If the music stops, make any sound of your own to drown out what is happening around you. After 3:33, you are allowed to roam the house until 4. Do not leave before 4, and do not leave more than 5 minutes after 4. If any rules are not completed correctly, hide under the desk and do not move until 4. That is all. Your shift starts tomorrow night at 471 Pedersen Drive. Sincerely, Mr. Salazar. I must have read that email 10 times over, thinking that this was a prank or something. No way do I actually have to follow these crazy rules, I thought to myself, entranced at how specific the rules were. I put my phone back down to charge and I went to sleep, still confused by that email. All I could do the next day was think about what that email said. The man in the living room, the woman in the kitchen, conversation with the person in the window. It all seemed too crazy to be true. But I couldn't help but find myself 15 minutes before 12 with an old iPod in my pocket, standing at 471 Pedersen Drive. I entered the house. It had a sort of old but still livable vibe to it. The house was dusty, but the kitchen and living room were spotless. I made my way upstairs, and at the end of the long hallway stood the camera room. It was barren and small, with nothing but a chair, a camera monitor, and a couple of windows in it. I sat down in the chair. Man, I hoped that this was worth it. It wasn't. Looking at the computer's clock, it read 12:03 a.m. I have 1 hour to look around the house. First, I head back to the living room. I closed the blinds, locked the doors, and I turned the lights off. I repeated that for all the rooms, and at 12:56, I was back to the camera room. As soon as it hit 1 a.m., I felt a sudden dread, telling me to get up and leave right now. I turned on all of the cameras, and on the back of my neck, it felt as if a feather was resting on it. I froze. Keep calm, Chris. Keep calm. I closed my eyes as I remembered the rules. It felt like hours, that feather tickling the back of my neck, but I held out, not moving and keeping my eyes closed. The feather went away. I opened my eyes relieved, and I heard behind me slow, coordinated footsteps. I whipped around and the footsteps went away, and a slow chuckle came from the camera speaker. The man was watching TV. The TV was lit up with some cooking show, and the man was chuckling while watching the show. I turned that camera off, and I hoped that I had done it fast enough. The sound from the TV echoed up the stairs, chilling me to the bone. What the hell is this place? I thought to myself, feeling queasy. And how is it only 1:20? The next 20 minutes were as creepy as can be. Unknown sounds bounced around the house, the man laughing at the TV, watching all the cameras until the silence hit me hard. The TV had been turned off, and dread had fell upon me again. The noise from the TV had been a constant for the past 20 minutes, but now that it was off, the silence felt threatening. I slowly turned on the camera and I found the room to be empty. I sighed in relief. For what felt like an eternity, my eyes darted around the cameras, on edge until the clock made a quiet beep and it turned to 2 a.m. I rose from my chair and I opened the blinds, revealing the pitch-black lawn outside. I sat back down as the clanging of pots and pans ringed in my ears. I looked down at the blue button beside the monitor, and then at the lady, now cooking black eggs in the kitchen. As I was about to press the button, "Hi, Chris." A woman's voice came from the window. I froze, gluing my eyes to the monitor, forcing myself not to look at the window. "Hi, how was your day?" My voice was shaky. It was obvious that I was scared. "I was just strolling around the neighborhood. I saw that you were here and I just wanted to say hi." The window that she was talking to me through was high enough up the ground to need a large ladder to get to. "How was your day?" "My day, it was fine, thanks." The woman in the kitchen started to get louder. "Okay, well, I have to go. It was nice to meet you." "It was nice to meet you too." "Bye." I wanted to get up. I wanted to just close the blinds and never hear her voice again. But something just told me that I should not get up. "Wow, you're a smart one. I thought that would get you. Maybe next time. Goodbye." I waited a few seconds. The last thing that I wanted to see was the face of that lady talking to me. So I waited until I was sure that she wasn't there anymore, and then I closed the blinds. Once that ordeal was over, I realized that the lady in the kitchen was gone, even though I never pressed the button. "Oh no, no," I thought. I had broken one of the rules, and it was only 2:30. Now I'm sitting under the desk typing this out on my iPod, and there is a lady with a ragged apron on, walking in circles around the room. I'm scared to make any noise. So please, if you see an ad for dark web jobs, don't click it. Update. It's 4:30 now. I made it out of the house and I'm safe. My left leg is hurt a little, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened. The lady from the kitchen walked around the room, making soft groans and drooling everywhere. I kept as silent as I could. Freezing time, she turned in my direction. A small beep came from my desk, notifying me that it had turned 3 a.m. The lady in the room melted into the floorboards, screaming a scream of the utmost agony and pain. What I was supposed to do at this point was turn on the music of my iPod, close my eyes and cover my ears. But hiding under the desk, I didn't know if I still had to do that. I waited and silence was all I could find. Until the walls and floors of the house started to contort. The house shifted and moved into what looked like faces popping out of the walls. The only description of the sound I can think of is a scream of terror itself. I couldn't take it anymore. My mind told me to get up, to run, to get out as fast as I can. But I knew that I couldn't. I closed my eyes and I turned the music on. The screams were drowned out and it seemed almost calming. But in the back of my mind, I knew what was happening around me. The music blared loudly, and my eyes stayed glued shut. Then, the music turned off. I opened my eyes and the house was normal again. Shakily, I stood up and I looked at the clock. 3:34. I got back onto the desk and I lay there terrified. But nothing happened and I was sitting there for 35 minutes until the final beep from the clock came, telling me that I could finally leave. I got up, walked down the hallway, down the stairs to the front door, and finally, the sweet cool air of the night hit my face. And in that moment, I felt a relief that was almost euphoric. I walked home and I picked up my phone. But when I went to email Mr. Salazar, his email was gone. The website was gone. And there was no trace of him at all. I tried to fall asleep, but I couldn't get the faces out of my head. The look they had can't be explained. I don't know if I'm going to get my money, but at this point, I don't care. I just want to never go back to that house again. Update. It's 6 a.m. now. A package somehow appeared at my front door, and inside was $80 and a letter. The letter is as follows. You can't escape. Hello again, Chris. I see that you showed up for your first shift this morning. I appreciate that, but during your shift, you broke one of the rules. I've taken $20 out of your pay because of that. I'm pretty sure you were already aware, but I can tell you don't want to go back. Most people don't. And I'm here to say that you can't escape. By entering that house, you pretty much signed your soul away. No matter what you do, you will always be at that house by 12. That is all. Sincerely, Mr. Salazar. My sleep last night was horrible. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened on my first shift. The whole day I stayed in bed, terrified for midnight to come. But it had to come eventually. 11:57. I begged that nothing would happen to me. 11:58. I put my iPod in the trash. 11:59. I lay in bed and I close my eyes. I feel pressure on my feet, and my soft bed disappears from under me. I open my eyes and I find myself inside that cursed house again, with my iPod and a printed paper of the rules in my hand. What? How is it possible? I think to myself. I ran to the door, slamming my fist against it, wanting a way out, but it was to no avail. I could not leave. I defeatedly walked up the stairs and I sat in the camera room chair. I sat there crying for an hour until 1 o'clock came, and with it came the man laughing at the TV. I turned the camera off and I continued to sob, not caring about the sounds around me. But then I felt a hand wrap around my neck. I froze, closed my eyes, and I tried to control myself. The grip closed tighter and tighter until I could barely breathe, and then it finally left me alone. I gasped for air, and I grabbed the printed paper of rules given to me at the start of my shift. I looked at the printed sheet of rules, and at the bottom was a handwritten message from Mr. Salazar himself. Good luck. I looked back up to the cameras and I composed myself. Okay, Chris, you can do this. You've already been here once. Pull it together. I listened, not hearing the TV anymore. I turned the camera on and the clock let out a small beep. It had turned to 2 o'clock. I stood up to open the blinds, but I hesitated. Did I really want to talk to her again? Regardless, I pushed the thought away, and I opened the blinds to be met with a face only insane people would call a woman. It looked as if she hadn't eaten once in her life. Her skin looked like it was airtight to her bones and she had no meat in her body. Her smile was literally ear to ear. Her skin sagged down at least 2 feet, and her eye sockets had large, black bloodshot eyes with tiny, beady yellow pupils. Hello again, Chris. I closed the blinds as quickly as I could and I went to hide under the desk. But the desk is just a block. No space to hide under. I don't know what to do. I hear slow footsteps coming up the stairs. God, the doorknob is turning. The door is locked. Oh, thank God I remembered to lock it. She is screeching from behind the door. She's slamming her hands on it. It's only a matter of time until she breaks the whole door down. What do I do? Hi everybody, my name is Jeremy and recently I got laid off by my horrible boss. And I found a website for deep web jobs and I applied for house sitting. I also recently read Chris's shifts and I think we applied for the same job. Mr. Salazar emailed me something along the same lines. I'll paste his email here. Your application has been accepted. Thank you for applying to the house sitting job. You will stay at the house from 12 a.m. until 4 a.m. and you must follow these rules. Your money will arrive at 6 a.m. after your shift. Always, no matter what you hear or see, stay in the bedroom. Either don't bring your phone, or if you do not turn it on even if you get a notification. I will not email you during your shift. Arrive at 12 or a little before 12. If you arrive past 12, do not enter the house and send me an email. From 12 until 1, you are allowed to roam the house, but make sure to be in the upstairs bedroom by 1. Turn all the lights off, lock the doors, and close the blinds. This can happen any time during the night. If you hear loud music from the camera room, put on the hazmat suit that we have provided. Enter the camera room, walk to the security desk. Do not interact with the security guard, and turn off the music from the iPod on the desk. Make sure to do this fairly quickly. From 1 until 2, clean up all the clothes in the bedroom and hang them up in the closet. If any clothes have bloodstains, put them in the trash quickly. Make the bed, and if there are more than 3 sheets, throw away any extra. If you hear a knock at the window, hide under the bed until the entity has entered and left the room. From 2 until 3, put the hazmat suit back on and walk into the downstairs area. If there's a man watching TV, turn the TV off and ignore what the man does. If there is a woman cooking in the kitchen, then turn off the stove and ignore what she does. There is a bathroom connected to the bedroom. If you hear the shower turn on, knock on the door 3 times, no more no less. If the showering stops, it was done correctly. From 3 until 3:33, lay in bed and close your eyes. Do not fall asleep. Make sure to pull the blankets up to your neck and make sure that they stay there. From 3:34 until 4, your shift is complete and you are allowed to roam the house until 4. Do not leave before 4, and do not leave more than 5 minutes after 4. That is all. Your shift starts tomorrow night at 471 Patterson Drive. Sincerely, Mr. Salazar. I don't know what this means, but having read Chris's post, I think I'm ready and I can survive. I'm going to type this out after my shift is over. If I survive. I entered the house and I looked around, just as Chris had said. It looked old, but you could live in it just fine. The kitchen and the living room were in pristine condition, and it looked like they were bought yesterday. I walked up the stairs and I walked down the hallway, and I turned right just before the camera room, entering the bedroom. The room had a king-size bed in it, with clothes and bedsheets scattered around the room. There is a door off to the side of the room, which I assumed was the bathroom. The nightstand next to the bed held a small digital clock and a printed paper of the instructions. The clock gave a small beep signaling my time had started. I bent down and I picked up a couple of pieces of clothes, varying from bras to underwear to hats. I hung them up in the closet and I started to get bored, until I found a gray striped shirt with a large crimson stain on it. I immediately threw it in the large garbage can in the corner of the room and I continued with my work. I was picking out the last pieces of clothing, ready to make the bed, when I heard 5 slow, hard knocks on the window across from my bed. and then melted into the couch seams. I shuddered and I returned to my place upstairs. I entered and took about 10 minutes to take the hazmat suit off, only to be met with the sound of a warm shower. I came closer to the bathroom door, and I put my ear against it. I heard a lady humming lightly. I knocked 3 times. The humming and water stopped immediately after the 3rd knock. It felt unsettling how quickly it became silent. But faint off in the distance, I heard sizzling eggs. I quickly put the hazmat suit on and I rushed down the stairs. The woman was cooking black eggs. She was like the man watching TV. Her apron and hat were pristine, spotless, but her skin was, although in better shape than the man's, rotting. I reached for the oven dial, but I stopped. "Please, please keep it on. Please," the woman repeated with a soft voice. Regardless, I turned the dial to 0. The woman melted and I returned back to the bedroom. I thought this was going to be easy, but now I know what Chris felt. It is insanely scary being inside this house. 2:58, I pull the bedsheets up. 2:59, I get into bed. 3 o'clock, I close my eyes and I get comfortable. The bed is surprisingly soft, and I feel as if I could fall asleep even if a train was running right above me. I thought about everything else I had seen that night, and that scared me awake for a few minutes. But it was a constant struggle to stay awake and conscious. But I knew that I would become like Chris if I fell asleep. Finally, the clock beeped and the bed felt like it became stone, and I climbed out confused. I now had free time to walk around the house until 4. I checked in the camera room and Chris had disappeared. I waited patiently for 4 to come, and when it did, I went home and I started plotting a plan. Like many of you suggested to Chris, tomorrow I'm going to bring a knife and a lighter. I'm going to try to stab the entity and hopefully I can survive. I'll update you all again tomorrow. Wish me luck. Oh Jesus, the plan did not work as planned. I'm hurt, but I survived. Let me tell you what happened. Just because many of you were asking, I went back during the day, but the house wasn't there. Like many of you proposed, I took with me a bear trap and a large knife. I entered the house and I looked around. It looked the same, and I placed the bear trap right outside the bedroom door. Again, like you guys suggested, I tried unplugging the TV before the man appears. But when I went to pull it out, it was like the cable was a part of the wall. It was completely stuck and I couldn't manage to unplug it. The night started and it went as normal as it could. But while I was in the middle of cleaning up the clothes, I noticed that the bed had no hiding space under it. I had to come up with a new plan on the spot. My plan was, while I was sleeping from 3 to 3:33, and the entity was above me, I would take my knife and stab her. But now it looked like I wouldn't even make it to then. I hear the knocking on the door. The entity signals that it's coming and I panic. Where would I hide? I grab the knife and I crawl to a small space behind the door. I would have to stab her as she came in or as she was hit by the trap. I hear a step. The entity comes closer. Another. I tighten my grip on the knife. Again. A bead of sweat drips down my face. I hear a clang, the sound of the bear trap closing and a high-pitched demonic scream after it. I open the door and with all my might, I swing at the entity in front of me. The knife slides clean into one of the entity's eyes and black goo starts spurting from the wound. The entity screams, revealing at least 100 sets of tiny sharp teeth. It clenches my hand in its mouth and I scream out. The other workers suspended their existence and the house will do nothing tonight. But if it doesn't have a new best worker by tomorrow, then the workers are released from the house's grip and they will destroy and kill anything they come across. So, why are you doing this? Because, Jeremy, it is simply the only way to contain these workers. Then, who's going to be the next best worker? Well, Jeremy, I'm looking right at him. His mouth twisted into a sinister grin. Me? Yes, you. Killing my best worker and touching that black liquid caused your transformation to begin. In the next day, you will see your muscles and meat disappearing. Your skin will become stuck to your bones. Your face will sag. Your eyes will turn black and yellow. Your teeth will fall out. And you will grow an unsatiable desire to return to this house. What? I'm going to become like that thing. Unfortunately for you, yes. You can leave for now if you would like, but it is inevitable. I stood in disbelief for a few moments. Was I really going to become that thing? I turned around and I ran out of the door. When I came out of the door, I was standing in front of my house and behind me, the house disappeared. It's been a few hours and I'm noticing that I'm losing my muscles, and I have a really strong feeling to go back to that cursed house. My eyes have turned a dark gray, and I don't think that I can stay away from that house for much longer. I know that I can't stop what's happening to me. All I can do is just go back to that house. Wish me luck. It all started with me deciding to browse the deep web that one night. Look, before you judge me, not everybody who roams the deep web are psychopaths that hire assassins and sell weed online. It has many uses and it is different from the dark web, which is where there are psychopaths that hire assassins and sell drugs. Why was I using the deep web? Well, privacy, curiosity, and piracy. Besides, it is off the point. What I'm trying to say is that the deep web is mostly harmless and you don't really encounter stuff like what I encountered. There is a .tor site, a deep website, that takes you to a random Tor site. Kind of like a search engine with only the I feel lucky part. Not knowing what you're going to get is exciting and it's actually entertaining. For example, I've been to too many sites that discuss exotic conspiracy theories, like lizard people and aliens. See, most of the time you get to a place where crazy people argue about crazy stuff. In one of them, two users were in a heated argument about the color of aliens. Are they gray or are they pale blue? One commenter said, "Sure, idiot. They're from Sirius and they're long pale blue, idiot. The hell are you talking about? Aliens as we know are from Mars and there are pictures of them and old videos showing dissection of one. Aliens are gray and there's proof. Idiot, those are fake. Real aliens are far away, not Mars." And so on. The choppy comments. You get the point, right? There were some odd and interesting ones that I want to share with you people. For example, there is one for real-life treasure hunts, where people would hide something valuable and others would try to figure out where. Their efforts and the lengths they've gone through to decipher stuff is amazing, and I would go to that site every once in a while. Once, somebody shared a semi-hard treasure hunt with a surprise treasure, and people got to solve it. Once they did, they found a body. I'm serious. The one that had found the body called the police and they showed them the website to tell them how he had found it. The site was disabled for a few days until one of the creators helped police find the murderer. After the murderer did get caught, the site was back on, but with an added policy of showing the treasure to the mods before posting. And there was another one which seemed like a typical conspiracy theory site to me at first. It was about a man who they called the Collector. According to them, he was an immortal time traveler or something, and he appeared in many places during important events, collecting data, hence the name. The owner of the site claimed that he was now a billionaire living in the shadows, still collecting or something. He wasn't quite sure of any of it though, saying that, although he appears constantly throughout history, he never really does anything much. Not that I nor my fellow researchers know of at least. He continued in his next message, stating that, but this doesn't mean that he won't ever do anything. In the end, he is an immortal time traveler that collects data and you can't trust somebody as such, especially when they're a billionaire. As again, I thought that it was a funny conspiracy theory at first, but then I saw him looking at me from the street after I... Actually no, I will come to that part in time. First, how I messed up to this degree. The .tor site that brings people to a random Tor site this time ended up taking me to a discussion site in which people talk about their favorite Tor sites, which was fine by me. News sites are always good. One of the hot topics was the search engine I was using to get to random sites. People that were supportive towards the engine I was using, saying that it was an ultimate gamble. However, there was an anonymous user that suggested another tourist site with the same purpose, saying, "Guys, it's cool and all, but it only searches through normal tourist sites. It's kinda lame, so use this instead. This one has an even bigger pool of websites and it's not for normal ones only. You'll not regret it, I swear." His phrasing wasn't to my liking. It felt a little weird. But knowing that it was only 11:07 and I was getting bored, I decided to give it a try. Like a freaking idiot. I don't want to get into too much detail about this site because I don't want anybody snooping around and finding it out. So the only thing I want to tell is that it was black with a red "Find New Site" button on it. I made sure that it wasn't a shady download link, and I clicked it. The first site it took me to was one with red writings and probably an Asian language that I didn't understand. It had symbols and pictures of dragons in it. It was weird, but not so weird. I closed the site and I clicked the red button again. This time, it was Arabic. It had pictures of swords and new moon. I was getting bored of it. And then I found out that they had an English version that they would link right at the bottom of the page. I clicked it and I saw that it was a page calling people to jihad. I looked around a little and I closed it when I was bored of it. On the next page I opened was nothing at all, except for a small little red circle in the middle. I clicked it and a fart noise came out. Annoyed, I closed it. Red button again. This time, I saw a woman crying, and then a man came holding something in. Actually, I don't want to share this part. In the end, I was disgusted and horrified. I decided not to use the red button again. I mean, I thought finding new weird things would have been entertaining, not creepy like that. But the things that I had found were different, and to find something similar to those felt exciting. My heart was beating a little faster with the adrenaline. I knew that I had to click it again. Who knew what I would see? Illegal drugs, guns, cannibalism. I clicked. God damn it, I clicked it. The page that it brought me to was not okay. It had nothing, no name. The URL just read .tor. And it had a video with the circular play button in the middle. Instead of saying, "What the hell is this?" and closing the site for good, I decided to watch the video. And so I did. The video was black and white, showing a billiards table. There was only a ball visible on the left side of the screen. And then a gloved hand put the white ball on the right and hit it, making it go towards the other ball. It was in slow motion. The white ball started rolling towards the other ball, and when it hit the ball, instead of a force acting upon the ball and making it go left, both of them started to roll right, together. It didn't look edited. It looked real, but in a weird way. That made me feel uneasy, like everything I knew was shaken. It's a hard feeling to describe. That video made me a little bit sick too. I turned on the lights and I decided to walk around a little in my room. I looked out the window, so quiet and nice. Everything made enough sense. I touched my left hand with my right hand. Real, and the hands acted the way they should. That video had something surreal, but shown in reality. Unreality in reality. I turned back to my bed where I was lying down with my laptop before. The video was over anyway. I would close that site, the red button site too, and turn back to my previous random search engine. I turned the lights off and I got back to my bed. But instead of a reply option of any kind, the site had a button with next written on it. I didn't know what was next and it excited me. I clicked. I think I'm addicted to gambling. The next video started playing automatically. It was black and white again. There was a priest reading from the Bible. There was no sound, but his lips were moving as he... Wait, I thought. Did he just turn the wrong page? Yes, he did. Instead of turning the page on the right to see the next two pages, he turned the left page and he started reading them from the bottom right. The video was on reverse. Weird, I thought. And then the video ended. Unsatisfied, I clicked next. The first thing that piqued my interest was a pentagram. This video was also black and white. I guess every video was black and white on this site, I murmured to myself. Anyway, there was a white pentagram on top of a dark table. A gloved hand came to the vision and it put a cockroach on the top of the table. The cockroach at first wandered around, doing nothing in particular except being disgusting like cockroaches always are. And then it had found the pentagram. It followed around the line to the bottom left corner of the pentagram. It stopped for a short while, and then it started walking around the lines of it. It walked the route necessary to draw the pentagram. Bottom left, up. Bottom right, upper left, upper right. Bottom left, up, and so on. It did this for a while as I watched it with excitement, and then something even weirder happened. The cockroach, as it reached the bottom left once again, kept walking, but it did so in place without moving, like a mime. And then it started moonwalking like Michael Jackson to follow the reverse of its route. Bottom left, upper right, upper left, bottom right, up. It was disturbing and weird. This time it cut short. The video ended before the cockroach finished its first loop. Disturbed, disgusted, and shocked, I still pressed next. This time it showed the priest again. He was reverse talking faster. He looked a little pale and in a hurry. His nose was bleeding, only a little. As he turned the page, again the wrong page, I saw blood on his fingernail. The video ended. Next. There is a pentagram again. This video was shot from above like the other one. This time, however, there is a naked guy walking on the pentagram. I made the sound conclusion of this pentagram being bigger than the one I saw the roach walk in. And then I realized how unnecessary that thought was and I kept watching the video. Just like the cockroach, he followed the route normally at first, and then in reverse afterwards. Yet it was a little different this time. Before he started walking backwards, he shook a little, looking just like my friend Jake, who got electrocuted while playing with a fence. It was odd as hell. The video ended with him completing some tours backwards, and then getting out of the pentagram to be replaced by another guy, who started walking the route just as the video ended. Next, I saw a naked woman, with her back turned to the camera. Her dark hair was wavy and slightly messy, and she had an upside-down cross tattoo on the upper left of her back. The video ended. I, a little bit more excited now, I clicked next. A man crying in a graveyard. Crying in backwards. The video was taken from far away for some reason, and it being in black and white didn't help. But if you looked hard enough, you could see tears rising from the ground and getting into his eyes. They are only as big as pixels, but if you really look close enough and squint your eyes, you can. And then a black bird got to the view of the camera, flying backwards. It was always backwards. But my eyes gazed upon something awful. The woman from the previous video was walking towards the man. Even though the video was in reverse, she was walking straight towards the guy. As she got right next to him, the guy's eyes sucked the last of the tears they could and looked at her. The video ended right there. Holy shit, I detested. I clicked next again. The priest was back. He was pale as a human could get. He was bleeding from both of his eyes and nostrils. The cross on his neck was, every once in a while, trying to rotate on its own. Every time this happened, the priest fixed it. Other than that, he was reading from the Bible in reverse like crazy. Even though the video was on silent, the movement of his mouth indicated him shouting like a madman. Every time he turned the page, his fingers got in frame. His nails were pouring blood. The video ended. The next button was visible again. What kind of demonic shit is this? I asked to no one in general. It was scary and I was home alone. This was something that was not meant to be seen by somebody like me for sure. This was way above the insanity that I can endure without having nightmares for my entire life. Yet I clicked the button again. The next video made me regret it. The video was taken in a darkly colored room, with one light that is bright enough to show what was going on. It was black and white again, with a line of naked men. The video showed where they were headed. To that lady. She was looking at the camera. This time I noticed even weirder things about her. She had pentagram tattoos on her left chest. She was wearing a sleep mask, the kind that has eyes of cut animals on it, but this one had goat eyes. So yeah, I thought, goat eyes in black and white. How creepy could it get? Boy, it got worse. The first in line was super excited, as I could tell by looking at his, Well, she stopped looking at the camera, turned to him and gave him a long kiss. First, he was happy about the kiss that he was receiving, but then he started shaking his arms uncomfortably, and when they finished it, he started shaking like he was having a seizure on foot. And then he suddenly stopped. His body inhumanely arched back, like he was one of those weird running titans from Attack on Titans, and he kept on walking. I felt like throwing up, but I just kept watching. The same happened with another man on the line. He received the kiss, had a seizure, body arched back and kept walking. I noticed some other details as I kept on watching. For example, the guy's walking patterns had gotten the same after they got the kiss, even though they had been different before. And not only that, but their pupils expanded greatly just as they had received the kiss, making their eyes a horrifying dark afterwards. And yeah, one of the guys was the guy crying in the graveyard. The video stopped. I looked at the button very hard, not sure what to think or what to do. I clicked it. The priest was back. His Bible was soaked in blood, just as his eyes, nose, mouth, ears, literally everything and everywhere was soaked in it as well. He was this time looking directly at the camera. Angry, scared, pale. His cross was turning around and around without a care in the world. He shouted words to the camera. Every time he opened his mouth, blood gushed out, yet he still seemed to be in reverse. He directed his pointing finger at the camera. It got soaked in blood. It was kind of funny for some reason. almost like a weird finger water gun, pointing your fingers at others to squirt water. You could see, despite the camera being covered in blood, him shouting more and more. Each time, more blood came out. Blood was gushing out of his ears, eyes, nose, mouth, even skin. At last, he erupted. His head exploded and what came out was, well, you guessed it, more blood. Too much blood. Next. And I clicked it. A pile of the men, all dead in a white room. Black and white. Dilated pupils in the pile. Something caught my eye. A tattoo on one of the men. It was familiar. Why? I looked at the man. It was my friend from college, William. William, how could I forget about him? I was so close to him, and then he... Who was I thinking about? I said to myself out loud, to refresh my memory. It didn't work. I looked at the men in the video again. William. It was William. But why and how could I have forgotten about him? In mere seconds, that is, I, in order to test this new and horrifying phenomenon, looked away while thinking of William. His face, our memories, and my thought of him all seemed to vanish in mere seconds. And when I tried to remember, it was like trying to catch a fog. I shivered and I looked at him again. I had to do something. I had to learn what happened to him, to William. William Jackson, yes. I searched him on social media sites and some other sites. Nothing. Weird. I tried to remember his relatives and I realized that I had forgotten his name again. Looked at the video again, which was still going, but nothing was happening on the video. William Jackson. His mother's name was Maria, yes, Maria Jackson. I searched for Maria Jackson. I found her. I searched her profile to see if it was stupid enough to share her phone number in social media. Yes. I looked at the clock. 3:33. When did it become so late? I wondered. And then I entered her number, called her, and I waited on the line. To my surprise, she answered. Yes, she asked. Ma'am, do you know what time it is? I'm sorry, man, but I've got a question to ask about. I looked at him on the video again, just to remember his name. Your son, William. She was silent for a long time. William. She started crying. My sweet William. Why? A short pause. Her crying got worse. Why can't I remember my sweet William? I didn't know what to say, so I stood silent. Who is this? She asked after a long pause. And why am I crying? I'm sorry, she said, recovering from her cries. Did we talk about something? Jesus! I shouted and I threw my phone somewhere in fear, because the naked woman was on the video, and she was looking directly at me. While watching the kiss-themed video, I wondered how her eyes looked like under that goat eye-shaped sleep mask. Well, she herself had goat eyes too, and she was looking directly at me. Not at the camera, but at me. With all this panic and fear and adrenaline inside, I still noticed the small detail that the video was no longer in black and white. It had color. She was right next to the bodies when I first saw her. I wanted to close the window, but there was no cursor for some reason. And as she started walking towards the camera, wait, no, towards me, I noticed that I was unable to move, frozen in fear. She came closer and closer, until the entire screen was her head, with those eyes looking at me. She opened her mouth and her teeth were black. She said something in a language that I assume was in Latin. Her voice was horrifying and commanding, and tempting in a way, as she was. Now, she looked better to me. I mean, she didn't look bad before, but now she was tempting, and I started to move towards her, to the screen, where she was waiting for me. What ended the trance was the buzzing sound of my phone, to inform me that either a message came or I was about to be murdered by that freak on the laptop. I quickly backed away. She was surprised by my reaction just as I was. I quickly grabbed the edge of my laptop to close it in. Okay, maybe you somehow managed to believe me in my story this far, and I appreciate it. But I can understand if you choose not to believe what happened next. I really do. Because you know what? I still can't believe how she, as I grabbed the side of my laptop, plunged her freaking arm from the laptop screen and gripped my wrist. I cried out in fear and I tried to get free of her grip. She was strong, however, and so I did the first thing that came to my mind. I punched the screen with my free hand, hoping that it would get across and hit her in the face. I made contact, thank God. And then I was free, with my left hand still on the screen. I quickly pulled it out to see closed the door behind me, I found my baseball bat somewhere in the corridor, and I started waiting right in front of the door, listening to her screams, half expecting her to open the door and start attacking me while she was still ablaze. But it didn't happen. Her screams faded into nothingness and I, with great courage, opened the door. No smoke, no burned naked lady, nothing. It was my room, a little messier than before, but still. As I looked around, I noticed something all of a sudden. I could now remember William. Somehow burning her must have brought his memory back. I looked around to make sure that no danger was left around, and I started looking for her phone, just to talk to William's mother. I didn't really question why it was my priority. I really wasn't in a mindset to question anything. But then, when I saw the guy I mentioned before looking at me across the street, I lost my previous thought. He was doing nothing but looking at me. I looked back at him and I realized that he was the one from the Collector website. Long and old, with glasses and a weird hat. Wait, I thought, forgetting the guy in a second, and what about the laptop? With the fear of something similar to that naked lady coming out of my laptop again, I started looking around for it. It was on the floor and in good shape, but the screen was not in my view. With great fear, I picked up the laptop and I looked at the screen. Next,